Hey everybody, welcome back to the Castaway Consultants Rewind series, where we're going back and watching old Survivor so you don't have to.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. I'm Ryan Stacy, one of your three hosts, the smartest of your hosts, probably. About Survivor-related things only. About everything else, I'm probably just the second smartest. Not going to say who is the first and third smartest, though. But I have two co-hosts with me who are going to introduce themselves right about now.
All right, I'm Derek Kupchak, and on these Rewind series, I have not seen any of these old seasons of Survivor. So Ryan's role is the superfan, and my role is the Virgil. I know some of these results. In the case of Pearl Islands, I knew the winner. If you know anything about Survivor, how can you not? But I don't know how we get there, so that's my role. And I am obviously the co-host who is smarter than Ryan overall.
And I am Josh Wessler, and I am somewhere in between. I've seen almost every season of Survivor, but not all quite yet, so I'm here so that we can judge how memorable this season is. I remember not a lot from this, honestly. I remember some of the key people, and the theme is the very obvious thing about it. But outside of that, it's usually a lot of reminders. It's, oh yeah, that's right, that happened. Yeah, that was fun. Good times.
And to catch the audience up, the way that we're having Josh follow along in the season, he watches the first episode with us, he watches the merge episode with us, and then he watches the finale with us. And typically at the beginning of a season, he'll go through a game with Ryan and see how many people he remembers without any sort of memory triggers or anything like that. So that's his role. He watches just those 3 key episodes and then gives us some memorable moments.
And so today we're going to be talking about the post-merge of Survivor Pearl Islands. So spoiler alerts for the entire season if you haven't watched it yet. We're going to have one more thing to talk about before we get into full spoilers. The main question here we're trying to figure out is this must-watch Survivor? Now that we finished Survivor Pearl Islands, do you guys think this is must-watch Survivor?
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, for more reason than one, I don't remember if for the first half of Season 7 I said it was must-watch. I believe I said it was.
Yes, you did.
I would argue that this entire season as a whole is must-watch Survivor. If you're going to pick a half, I think I would pick the second half. I think it's wholly more interesting. But you know what? No, stop that. Just watch the entirety of Season 7. This is important to the mythos. You get some really awesome characters, some really cool moments, some Hall of Fame material. Absolutely.
I would agree. Watch the entire season. I don't even want to really pick one half or the other. I think they're both very necessary, like Derek said, to the entire story of Survivor, along with just great characters here. Like I said, great characters, great theme. Overall, very entertaining. Even though I only did watch 2 episodes here in the post-merge, I was entertained fully both times. And honestly, the finale was kind of the least entertaining. It was, I don't know, just a typical old Survivor. Little slow, but the rest is very fun.
Yeah, this is 100% must-watch Survivor. For a long time, Pearl Islands was my favorite seasons. Not to give away my season rankings, but you know, I watched Survivor growing up. I watched it as it aired, and for the longest time, Pearl Islands was my number 1 season. You know, it's got a great cast, great theme, everything we've talked about that Derek and Josh has already said. This is 100% must-watch Survivor. If you could only pick like 4 or 5 seasons of Survivor to watch, this is one of them. Hands down. Absolutely. So spoiler from here on out, if you've not watched Pearl Islands, if you don't know who wins somehow, get out of here, go watch it, come back and listen to us. Or if you don't care about spoilers, just stick around. But from here on out, we will be spoiling the rest of this season. You better be gone. Sandra wins.
Spoilers.
So, at this point in the season, we have 8 people left in the game. We're about to get 2 more, but we don't know who those 2 are. So, a real quick refresher of the 8 people who are still in the game. From the Morgan tribe, we have Andrew Savage, an attorney from Chicago. Ryan Opre, an electrician from California. Tawana Bradley, a pharmaceutical saleswoman from St. Louis, Missouri. And Dara Johnson, a mortician from Mississippi. On the Drake tribe, we have Rupert Bonham, a troubled teens mentor from Indianapolis. Krista Hasty, a computer programmer from Los Angeles. Johnny Fairplay Dalton, an art consultant from Los Angeles. And Sandra Diaz Twine, an office assistant from Washington State. Those are our 8 who are still in the game.
An art consultant?
I think so. Apparently, Fairplay's kind of a cultured guy. Like, he's into art, he's into, like, fine foods and wine and stuff like that.
He goes on a food reward with somebody at some point in the post-merge and gets to show it all off.
So, unless you guys got anything else, you want to just jump into these episodes?
Let's go.
All right. So, we come back into the post-merge with Episode 8, What the? Part 2. So, we get the Outcast back. And we get our 6 outcasts we've had. We have Michelle, Skinny Ryan, Lil, Burton, Michelle, and Trish. Those are our 6 people who were voted out first. They have a chance to get back into the game. The 2 that are going to come back in are Burton and Lil. And just a reminder, Burton is a marketing executive from San Francisco, and Lil is a scout leader from Cincinnati, Ohio. Or maybe it was Cleveland. I don't remember. Ohio.
From Ohio.
That's the important thing.
Who cares?
So Burton, one of his pitches is that I really like. He promises not to lie to the other outcast. That's a good ally if you want to go back in the game. Burton, he's like, I'm not going to lie to you. We're in this together. We're the outcast. Okay, that makes for a good ally. Is it true? Not really.
Doesn't need to be.
And then Lil gets voted back into the game as well. And the rumor is, this is just hearsay, but the rumor is Lil got voted back into the game because the rest of the outcasts were so sick of her because she was just whining all the time that they just didn't want to deal with her anymore. So they voted her back in, and that's how Lil got back in the game. So
a good strategy.
It's having a terrible social game worked out for
her. The only benefit to being voted out of Survivor early is to get a free vacation the rest of the time you're there. No one wants an annoying person on a free vacation.
It's true. So now we've got our 10. Burton, they draw buffs to which tribe they go back to. Burton ends up going to Drake, and Lil ends up going to Morgan, back to their original tribes. And you know what? This is kind of a tale of two cities here, because the Drake tribe is going to play this so well. They're all super nice to Burton. They bring him back into the fold. Rupert pulls Burton aside. They have a really honest talk about why Rupert voted him out, and they seem to mend bridges. Drake is back together, baby.
It's a good move. It's a great move. I'm way more interested with what happens on the other tribe, but as we preach on every episode of this podcast, you always got to play nice. You never know when you need to cross a bridge. You never know when you need an ally or a number. So if Rupert had such strong feelings towards Burton, and that was the reason that Burton got voted out, I'm glad that, one, Rupert took him aside and had that difficult conversation now that there's a second chance. And I was happy to see how receptive Burton was to hearing those things. He said, I wish you would have told me, but he doesn't make excuses. He's just saying, I want to try and do better going forward. I think that this is a great lesson for Survivor as well as a great lesson for life.
Yeah, this is handled as about perfectly as you can by the Drake tribe.
Over on Morgan, different story. Like, at first, they try to play nice, but that facade lasts for like 2 minutes, and Lil doesn't even buy it for those 2 minutes. And by the next day, Andrew's actually complaining to Lil about the outcast twist to her face. Bro.
Yeah, not a good look.
What are you thinking? I'm flabbergasted by this from Andrew. Andrew's played a pretty solid game so far. And yeah, this twist isn't fair, and it sucks for Andrew's game. And yeah, like I feel kind of bad for him, but he makes his problems so much worse.
The thing that I had the biggest problem with the Morgan tribe, yes, partly they did a terrible job at trying to make Lil make sure that she's comfortable there, but I didn't see once on camera that they tried to recruit Burton at all. It seemed like they were playing for just her, and that's it. And I feel like that was a really bad move.
I have to assume they tried.
You'd think so. Like that'd be unexcusable.
Yeah. And to be fair, this is a regular timed out episode. It's a 42-minute episode or whatever. Not very much time is spent with the two tribes finally merged together. It's very quick. Because we're going to get the merge next day. We get a swimming immunity challenge, which Burton ends up winning. And Burton and Lil both already have immunity because they got voted back into the game, which is a little BS. I don't love that. They both get immunity right off the bat. But Burton ends up winning it anyway. And he gets to give it away if he wants, which he'll get to do at Tribal Council, and we'll get to that. But yeah,
very similar to in modern seasons, the Edge of Extinction, where they get an idol when they come back into the game.
They only did that on the first one. They didn't do that one on 40 at least.
Because in 40 they had the fire tokens that they could buy idols to get back into the game. But yeah, Chris Underwood and Rick Devens, I believe, were both awarded an idol in coming back from the Edge.
It was an idol they had to split in half.
Yep.
Give it to somebody else, and then after that first Tribal Council, they could put it back together. So it was iffy.
I think it's a little. If you're gonna do something like that, I think that you do. To clarify, don't like this part of the game at all. But if we are already in the game that you have to have this be a feature of it, I like the fact that they keep it a little interesting and say like, okay, this person's not just gonna get voted out immediately, but that they can still do a little bit with that. So I do like the idol side of it.
The split idol's the split idol's 100% better than just straight up immunity. That's way better. But yeah, I don't love this. And like I said, the Outcast twist on paper, 99% of the time, it's going to suck. And it's not a good twist. We just got that 1 out of 100 times that ended up giving us a really entertaining season. We got lucky. Let's never do it again.
And they never do. I guess I don't know that, but
they never do the Outcast twist again. But they do Redemption Island. They do Edge of Extinction, and that sucks.
Yeah, like I think I mentioned it in the pre-merge. They've been trying since 2003 or whatever this is to have some facet of the game where you have someone returning just to keep them in longer.
Stop. Just stop it.
Survivor's not a soap opera. We
Yep.
don't need people coming back from the dead. We don't need twins coming back in. We don't need any of that.
And we don't want it.
And most of us, I would say, don't want it.
And those of you who do are wrong. And I won't apologize for that.
You're allowed to have your taste, but you're going against...
Your opinion is bad and you should feel bad.
Oh, Ryan.
I will not back down from that.
I agree that everyone can like whatever they want to like.
But you were liking the wrong things and making Survivor worse. Congratulations. You're trash. And I will not apologize. And if you were listening to this and you were a fan of one of those twists and you're offended by that, good. I'm intending it to be offensive.
At Ryan. Please, at him.
me. At me with your terrible ideas.
But we're getting off topic a little bit. I had one thing I wanted to say about Savage here. We already touched on it. Don't complain about the twist that was for someone else's favor to the person who was favored by it.
blame everybody else.
You can get, yeah, you absolutely. If I'm anyone, even if I'm on the Drake tribe that made nice, right? I would still be behind the back. This guy got voted out. There's no way if we go to the jury, we're voting for this person, right? Can we all just kind of agree to that? And I know that they gave us some of those previews, but David Bloomberg, he always writes articles, why X lost. Now, there's a whole litany of reasons that Andrew Savage lost this game, right? But if you had to boil it down to one, I would say the reason that he leaves very soon is because he went to Lil and said, yeah, your whole existence is a farce, and I reject it. I reject this hypothesis, and good day.
And this was very hard for me to watch. Just because, one, he's my winner pick.
Oof, yep.
Yep. And two, the things that I was applying him the most at the beginning was I picked him because I thought that he had the right personality to be the leader that they needed at the beginning of the game, but to still survive long enough and put himself in a good position to where that wouldn't be his downfall. And he did it. He overcame the odds of being the leader of a tribe and made it all the way to the merge just to do this.
Yep.
And that is so frustrating to me.
He tried so hard and got so far.
And in the end,
didn't even matter. Because Lil's here. So Drake, they're going to work on bringing Lil into the fold because Drake is solid. They're not going to break up. And Lil is not solid. And Lil, her closest ally is Burton. So Burton's going to bring her in to knock out Andrew because Lil wants Andrew gone, obviously, and he's the biggest threat of the Morgans. And the best part is Lil's kind of on the fence, and Andrew asks Lil to let him know, which is what Lil asked Andrew back in the day when she got voted out. She's like, hey, will you at least let me know before I go home if it's going to be me? And Andrew says yes. Andrew does not let her know.
It's poetic. I love it for TV, but let's just make one thing clear. I think they both made the right move in not revealing this. You never tell somebody that they're the ones going home. So they both made the right move, but the poetry and symmetry here is beautiful. I mean, you could hang this up on a Survivor wall and it would be right up there.
Yeah, Andrew was 100% right to not tell Lil back in the day.
And Lil is just as well in the right, not just because of how Andrew treated her, but this is a game. Why would I tell you anything?
Personal aside, everything personal aside, just pure logic, facts, yes, this is the right move. It sucks for Andrew. This whole thing sucks for Andrew, but he just made it worse for himself.
Yes.
But then, what do you do? So Tribal Council ends up being, of course, 6 votes for Andrew, 4 votes for Johnny Fairplay, because they all hate Johnny Fairplay, because everyone hates Johnny Fairplay. And this is 100% the right move, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically pick anyone from the Morgan tribe, but it's...
Of the Morgans, Andrew's the right call.
Yeah.
And even if you just look at it on paper, I do believe Drake versus Morgan is a perfectly logical way to separate the two voting blocks here. And I do believe that on the Morgans, Lil is 5. So why stay with them? That doesn't make any sense. So yeah, Andrew Savage is the right move.
And Burton is not necessarily 5 on the Drakes.
Right.
Yeah, and basically it's vote out the biggest threat, essentially, on the Morgan tribe. He's the leader.
So Josh, who do you have for best player of the episode?
I went with Burton just because of how easy he made it look, melding back into the Drake tribe. Yes, he convinced everyone to vote him back into the game. That's one thing. But the thing to set him apart from Lil, who did the exact same thing, is that it was seamless. Whereas Lil talking to the rest of the Morgan tribe was not seamless. Burton mended fences and made allies in this process.
Derek, who do you got for best player?
I also give the edge to Burton. Josh kind of already touched on all the big things. I do want to say once we get back into the regular game, because what put Burton over the edge is that he's back in the game. I mean, you come back from the dead and then play pretty much flawless from there, winning immunity, giving it to Rupert to build a bridge, even though it didn't matter.
Yeah, I did forget to mention that he gave his immunity to Rupert to build that bond.
So I give it to Burton for all of those things, but I will give Rupert a huge thumbs up for pulling Burton aside and explaining this is why I voted you out, but this is why we need to stick together going forward. We are both big physical threats, more of a reciprocated meat shield sort of strategy where they kind of knew that they were leaning on each other, and that's something that we haven't seen a ton of yet in Survivor, and I love the move, and we know that it's effective. So Burton, but honorable mention to Rupert.
Yeah, it's Burton with Bullet for everything you guys said. Burton was great, basically a flawless episode, or beyond flawless, because he got back into the game. That's more than perfect, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's 100% Burton. Now for worst player, I'm going to start this time because I'm doing something a little unusual. I don't like it. I hate when people do this on like podcasts when you give out an award and you split it. I hate it. It drives me nuts. But I cannot find a way to break this tie. I have a 3-way tie. Andrew would get this award if he was eligible. If you were eliminated in the episode, you cannot win best or worst player. Can't do it. Otherwise, Andrew would 100% win. So I have it for the 3 Morgans of Rhino, Dara, and Tawana for not making Lil feel like part of the tribe. Beyond that, I don't have another way to break this tie. I couldn't figure out a way to give it to one of the other 3, and I kind of hate it, but I got nothing. Can you 2 help me out here? Do you have any way that you thought of to split this? Otherwise, I have to give it to all 3 of them.
Well, I have written down here Morgan tribe.
Okay.
I ironically had the same thought process as you. I think I was writing that down in the hopes that I would make a decision, and I never did. So what you listed off were 3 people remaining on the Morgan tribe outside of Lil, obviously. So no, I can't help you, Ryan.
I'll try, because I also think that it's everyone on the Morgan tribe. I hold Tawana and Rhino intellectually and strategically up a little bit higher than Dara.
That's fair.
So I want to know why they as a group did not come together at some point and talk about trying to make Lil feel comfortable and don't talk trash. Nobody stopped Andrew Savage from speaking his mind, and maybe this is because they elected him leader and he kind of felt like he had free reign to say and do what he wanted and it would be respected. So I've got nothing. It's the Morgan tribe.
Okay.
The former Morgan tribe.
The tribe formerly known as Morgan.
Yes.
Okay, besides Lil, okay, so yeah, we've got no choice but to give it a 3-way to Rhino, Dara, and Tawana.
And we have to remember, we didn't get a lot in the edit from everyone, and with our up-to-date episodes, we always talk about the qualifiers, 1% of 1%. I would say we got like 1/4 of 1% after these tribes actually came together.
Yeah, a big chunk of it was like just the feast. Like, who cares? It's a feast.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, I hate when people on podcasts can't pick an answer, but this is one of those times where we got no other information.
Watch the episode and let us know if you think that we're wrong.
Yeah, please. If you have an idea of which of those 3 is the true worst player of the episode, or if somehow it's one of the others, please let us know, because we've got nothing, and I don't like it, but what can you do? So,
yep,
we will try our best not to have that happen in the future, but we can only do so much.
Sorry.
Josh, you've lost your winner pick. Andrew Savage is gone.
That I have.
Now, before we get into your new winner pick, I just want to say something. Andrew Savage will return to play again. Are you guys okay with that? Do you want to see Andrew come back?
I do. I think that maybe one more time, can you mold your game a little bit better, not take on the leadership role, not get thrust onto a tribe that, honestly, without the other tribe throwing a challenge, would have probably just been whittled down to utterly nothing and completely obliterated. So I think he's a strong person. I don't know about player, but a strong person on a weak tribe, incredible storyteller, really smart, really keen. I want to see him again.
Yeah, I would agree. Usually unless I just completely hate the person, if they are put into a specific role like this on a tribe, like Andrew was with the leadership role, I want to see what they can do when they're not forced into that position, because that basically, right off the bat, changes, if they did have some sort of game plan going in, it changes it just completely. So I would like to see what he would do just kind of in a normal player role.
I want to see Andrew come back because anytime I think there's a twist that's kind of unfair and really screws somebody, again, I'm not opposed to those twists being in the game, but I do feel bad for them as a person. And because, everything else aside, I do think Andrew is a good narrator. He's got some chops at Survivor. I think he got screwed by a twist, and I always like to see people come back and see what they can do with a fair shake if they can get it. So I would like to see Andrew come back. But Josh, you've lost your winner pick. Now you got to make a new one. So at the time of play, do you remember who you picked after Andrew went out?
If you break it down, I can't, in good faith, pick basically anyone on the Drake tribe, which is odd because they should have the advantage here. You can maybe make an argument for Sandra, like at best, and I can almost pick Burton, but I don't think that an Outcast would win this game. So, and I already mentioned before that I don't think Rupert would have a chance at all. So then if you go over to the Morgan side, you have Dara, Tawana, and Ryan O. Well, I would say Ryan O is the best of those three. So he's my new winner pick.
All right, jumping on the Rhino train with me.
Hooray.
Hooray.
And I would have switched to Rhino at the merge. But I am ride or dying with Sandra. We'll see if that pays off.
Yeah, we'll see if that pays off. All right, let's move on to episode 9, Shocking. Simply Shocking, which is a quote from a James Bond movie, which is funny because Rhino's an electrician, and he's going to go out in this episode.
That's why they did it.
Probably.
That's why they did it.
So Rupert wins a breakfast reward, but he gives it up to Burton to thank him for giving him immunity, and Burton then takes Lil with him on the reward. Don't give up rewards. Don't give up rewards, people. Rupert, just take Burton with you to thank him. Done. Never give up a reward. In fact, probably shouldn't win rewards in general, because every time you win a reward, you're going to have to pick someone to go with you, and that creates problems and animosity. Unless you're on a team winning a reward as a team, go ahead and win it, but if it's an individual reward, throw it every time.
The best thing that you can do is get picked to go on a reward, because then it's not really your fault, but ultimately you don't really want to end up, with an ally on a reward, and you don't want to end up with someone too shifty as an enemy on a reward either. It doesn't really do any good for you and your spot in the game, almost ever. That being said, I guess I didn't mind Rupert giving it up this time. I don't feel like it worsened his position because Rupert is Rupert and everyone knows who he is, but generally speaking, I subscribe to your way of thinking.
And then Burton, Lil, and John, they all come together to make an alliance, and they want to break up the trifecta of Rupert, Krista, and Sandra, which is fair. Definitely something to look into doing, because those three are 1, 2, and 3 right now. They have to be broken up at some point. Meanwhile, Sandra and Krista want to get both Burton and Rupert out of the game at some point, which is interesting. Sandra wants to get rid of Rupert at some point.
And why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? But they want to get rid of Burton first, and they bring this idea up to John, and John's like, nah, we shouldn't get rid of Burton right now, because John wants Burton in the game. A little suspicious. Christy probably should have read into that a little bit more.
Yeah, whenever you have someone defending another player.
Why?
Maybe look into it a little bit.
Why are they defending another player? That's a question you should always be asking yourself. And Dara and Tawana are not doing any work around camp. And why would they? They're on the bottom.
Why would you?
They're the next two to go. I wouldn't do any work either. Save your energy for the challenge.
The only thing I can say is I hope that they're trying to go to the Drake voting block and integrate themselves. You know, maybe that's something simple like trying to go and do chores with someone on Drake who's maybe going alone and just helping. And maybe it's one of those things where just being there and maybe not trying to talk strategy, not trying to sway someone. They're thinking, you know what, maybe I do want to work. Because out of sight, out of mind, insight in mind, right?
Yep.
So just be there, be present. I don't know that I would completely lay down and die unless, of course, I am the last one on a voting block that was clearly at the number 1 and there's absolutely no way. Then maybe I'd get a little vindictive, but I would look back at myself and say, dude, why'd you do that? You can't give up. Until your torch is snuffed, you are alive. So not a great move, but I understand why.
So we go to your guys' favorite type of immunity challenge, the coconut chop.
Boo.
Oh, this happened this season?
Yep.
Great, I don't remember it.
Yeah.
Same trash that it was earlier.
Did anything change?
So I want to give Drake tribe as a whole and Lil props because they all do a really good job of hiding the pecking order. And Lil and Burton, especially, they go after each other in this challenge, hiding their relationship. That's a great move. Everybody's learned from what happened in Marquesas, so they're just hiding everything. And Rupert ends up winning the coconut chop.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Good for them then.
Yeah, almost nobody targeted him at all.
Yeah, I think he got like 1 chop. But we go to Tribal Council, and Rhino goes 8-1. He votes for Krista because he doesn't like Krista, but it's 8 votes for Rhino. Obviously Drake is going to stick together, vote out another Morgan, which is the right move at this point. And Rhino is the biggest threat of the 3 Morgans, I think. So I think this is clearly the right move.
Yep, it's the right move, and we didn't really discuss it, but Ryan was trying to conspire with Burton, with Johnny Fairplay. He was trying to get something together, so it's not like he just laid down, but the move makes too much sense for the Majority Alliance.
Yep, Rhino's a likable, smart guy. Take him out while you can.
Yeah, maybe a little hindsight that I should have had when I picked my new winner pick.
Too much of a threat? So, Derek, who do you have for best player of the episode?
I had for my best player, Johnny Fairplay. I love the fact that he had the smarts to stick with the strong alliance to take out one more Morgan, but has cut side deals with Burton in order to take out Rupert eventually, which is something you need to be thinking about today, right now. There are only so many vote outs that you get. You need to be exploring other options. Honorable mention to Burton, of course, for exploring that lane with Johnny Fairplay as well, but it really seemed like Johnny was the mastermind behind it, more of the architect, so I gave credit to him.
Agreed. He helped protect Burton from going home when Krista was suggesting that, and he made the right move in eliminating Rhino, and then everything you said, of course, so it's Johnny Fairplay.
I like it.
Worst player?
You go first.
I don't have one.
Wow.
Yeah, for this time, I think everybody was doing good things to try and improve the position in the game, and nobody did anything bad. It just didn't work out for some people, but that's not necessarily their fault. So I don't have a worst player.
The only thing I would offer up is my difference of opinion about how Dara and T were acting around camp. So for that reason, I say Dara, just because I don't feel like she has a strong social connection with anybody on the other side. And if now you're refusing to do any work around camp, you're just adding to the list of reasons that, one, either you can't win and they'll drag you to the end for a goat, or two, just vote you off because you're dead weight. So that was why I would give it to one of either T or Dara and flip a coin.
Yeah, I said no for Dara because I don't blame her for not doing any work.
I don't blame her at all.
While I don't blame her for not doing any work, I think it is still too early in the game to be able to have everyone play as good as they can be and have no negatives. So I would side with Derek here and say that Dara would be the worst of the episode. Even if you and Juan are just sitting around, then just be better. Like, you just have to be better than one person. Like, do something.
Yeah, if anything else, she should have tried to be better than T, and T should have tried to been better than her.
But Josh, you and I both lose our winner pick this time around. Rhino was out of the game, first member of the jury.
It was a good run.
It was a good run. He was my original winner pick, so it sucks to see him go out here. Seemed like a good guy. So, Josh, you got to make a new winner pick.
Yep.
Who do you got?
All right, so if you guys remember from about 5 minutes ago when I gave my reasonings of who could who I would think could win this game, the only 2 people that I think I even mentioned were Sandra and Burton. And you're just going to have to say screw it to the Outcast twist and say Burton can win this game. I'm going with Burton.
I respect the pick.
So at the time, when I was a kid, and I was in 4th grade when the season aired, I went over to Rupert next because he had gotten such a good edit at this point. He was still in the majority. Things hadn't turned sour for him. So I moved on to Rupert. Rupert was my new pick just because he was getting such a good edit. Even though I didn't know those terms when I was a kid, but that's kind of, my brain thought those things, but without those specific terms in my head. I still like my Rupert pick, but I think Burton is probably a better pick. I probably would have switched over to Burton, screw the Outcast twist, but that's not how we're playing for me. We're playing what was my original pick. My new pick is Rupert.
I respect it.
We'll see how well that goes for me.
And I guess a little more reasoning behind Burton is I did like that he had, seems to be close with Rupert. He seems to be close with John. He seems to be close with Lil. He has enough there to get the votes at the end, because that's the thing that I'd be most worried about is not getting votes at Tribal. If you're close enough with people, they can maybe see past the whole, oh, he got voted out earlier in the game part about it.
It's happened.
Exactly. So I think that it is now feasible for him to do it.
All right, so episode 10 is Swimming with Sharks. So right away, Burton and John, they get Lil, Dara, and Tawana all on board. The 5 of them all agree Rupert's got to go. Time to vote him out, which is 100% right. He's the number 1 target. He'll win. He'll beat anybody at the end. So, yeah, this is good.
Yeah, it's got to come at some point. You might as well try to do it now.
And then Burton does something really stupid. Is he tells Rupert, hey, if I win reward, I'll give it to you. If you tell somebody you're going to give him a reward, you got to do it. You should never tell somebody that. He's going to go and win reward. It's going to be teams of 2. Burton and Lil are randomly put on a team together. They win the reward. Burton gives it to Johnny Fairplay. I get you don't want Rupert to have any extra strength for the reward challenge. That's fine, but why did you tell him you were going to give him the reward?
And this isn't the last time this happened. Like, this happens way too frequently. Even in Modern Survivor, it happens from time to time. And it has never made sense to me. Why even mention this? Like, I get making multiple alliances with people, multiple final twos, and then going back on it. Oh, no, they're out of the game. It doesn't matter. This person is still in the game, and they know that you directly lied to them.
One situation that I think of is, what if somebody comes up to you, Derek, let's say you come up to me and be like, hey, Ryan, if I win reward, I'll take you, you take me. How about we do that? And I'll be like, here's the proper response, I think. Derek, you and I are super close allies, right? We should not go on reward together. One of us wins, take some people we don't trust. That way you can watch the people on the reward, and I'll watch the people at camp. Do something like that. A, it creates more trust with that person by telling them that, oh, we're so close. B, you can actually keep an eye on people.
I want to turn this on its head a little bit, though, because you're absolutely right, by the way, because I've always said, if I'm on Survivor with you, Ryan, never pick me for reward.
Never pick me for reward.
We are not friends on Survivor. We can be friends.
Yep.
We can try and advance our games.
Yep.
But we're not friends.
Right.
Otherwise, you're only getting half the story from half the people. And that's bad. In this particular season, in this particular instance, do you want to know how I believe, and this is my headcanon, there's nothing confirming this, and I am sorry if I am wrong. I believe that Rupert went up to Burton and said, hey, I gave you my breakfast, so if you win reward, you're going to give me the next one, right? And Burton, being on his heels, because Rupert is a very forward character, and we know this, says, yeah. And then Rupert goes, well, signed, sealed, delivered. I guess I get the next reward if you win it. I don't really know the right way to approach this type of interaction because of the power that Rupert was wielding at this point in the game. Two, the fact that he had given up reward to Burton before and maybe felt a little bit owed, even though that was kind of in return for an immunity that I guess meant nothing, and maybe that's what Rupert felt. I don't know. I don't know.
So I think it's very easy to get caught off guard in Survivor. You don't know what other people are going to do. I wouldn't expect this whole thing of just like, hey, why don't we do this? Yeah. And you can get caught up really quickly in something, especially when it comes from a person like Rupert. So I see it of two ways. Either one, if you get caught in saying just kind of agreeing to it. What you do next is you go to Johnny Fairplay and say, hey, turns out I promised Rupert this because he basically bombarded me. Johnny Fairplay would understand that coming from Rupert and say, I got to give it to him next time I win. Option number 2, don't win reward.
That's the point.
Throw the challenge.
That is the easiest way to make sure that you don't go against anyone. It's just don't win it. Don't put yourself in the situation to pick.
The tricky part was this was a team reward. A little trickier to do that. But the other thing I want to say is that's why we're here. To prepare you so you won't get caught off guard. If you've thought about these scenarios multiple times over and over again like I have, you might be a little bit more, chances are you will at least have a chance of being ready in case it happens. You've prepared yourself for this situation if you've thought about it. And Burton has probably never thought about it. So if he did get caught off guard, well, that's why he got caught off guard.
And to which I say, by the way, because it's a team reward, can't necessarily throw it. Just give it to Rupert. Don't give it to Johnny Fairplay. But individual reward, just throw it. Always say yes and then throw it later.
Sure.
That's fine.
So John goes on fit reward with Lil, and I really like John here because he spends the entire reward not really having fun, but talking Lil through the plan and calming down her guilt because she starts breaking down and crying about how she feels so guilty about all this, and he's like, "Well, you can't." So, and he just spends the whole time reassuring her, like, "Yeah, it's fine, 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 Lil.
Suck it up, Buttercup. You're not a scout out here."
Yep.
Johnny Fairplay is the mentor that Lil needs.
Yeah, shockingly.
Because without Fairplay, I have no idea how far Lil can go in this game. But she is Lil, and she'll say this later on in the season. But Lil is Lil.
Yep.
Lil is Lil. Lil is Lil. You can't really change Lil. Well, turns out you can.
You can. A little help from Fairplay goes a long way.
You can tweak.
Yeah, you can't always play fair. Sandra is eavesdropping on Burton and John and gets whispers of their plan, not the whole thing, but she doesn't really do anything with it. She just kind of like, okay, well, Burton and John are scheming and plotting. Anyway, let's go back to what we were doing.
Maybe use it as ammo, I guess, in the future.
Make a move on them. Grab Dara and Tawana and make a move. Why not? So Lil ends up lying to Rupert about the plan to take him out. She just lies to him and says, oh, everything's fine.
And for the record, this is a good move.
I'm going to say it. Lil is an underrated Survivor player. Everybody thinks she's trash. Yes, Lil is extremely annoying and grating to watch on TV. Does she have zero game skills? No.
No, absolutely.
She has some. Granted, she might not if Fairplay hadn't coached her up, but she's going to show off that she has some skills. She makes strategic decisions.
Adaptability is one of the most important traits to have as a survivor. And you know what? Maybe she did start out rigid and wanting to play with integrity and honor and represent the Scouts, even if she didn't mean to wear the uniform, right? But adaptability is important, and she's showing that she can do it.
Lil's underrated. Lil's
That's fair.
underrated as a player, not as a character. So we get an immunity challenge, which is darts, and it's called Killer. And it actually looks like a really fun challenge.
This is a fun-looking challenge.
It doesn't translate well on TV because the rules are a little confusing because you have to land on your own zone first to become a killer, and then you can take other people out, and you can lose your killer status. I could imagine some people were confused by it. I would love to play this one. This looks awesome.
This is a great backyard game.
Yeah, let's play it. Let's build a killer board.
Let's do it.
But Burton ends up winning immunity because he's Burton. Of course, he's good at this.
And we didn't get a ton out of this other than I think Rupert started to suspect something going on because, Burton trifected him. And Sandra accidentally eliminated Rupert. So basically, Burton gets off kind of not scot-free, but
Sandra actually takes out Rupert. That's great.
Because she can't even blow the dart hard enough to hit the target. Burton and Rupert were the only two that could consistently do anything, which is why Burton wins.
Yeah. Because Sandra accidentally took out Rupert.
And she's like, I think she actually said OSH, Taki mushrooms.
Yep, absolutely. It was great. So John and Burton, they make a final 2 deal at this point. So good for them, but we're going to go to Tribal Council. And this is kind of interesting because at Tribal Council, Sandra calls out Johnny Fairplay for being lazy. Don't do that. Don't call people out at Tribal Council. It's not the move. But it ends up being 5 votes for Rupert, 2 votes for Dara, and Sandra votes for John for some reason. She throws a vote on John just because she doesn't like him. And the plan was vote for Dara. It wouldn't have mattered, but still, Sandra, eye on the prize.
Later on in Survivor, when idols are in play and you've got unanimous votes, I understand throwing a vote to force a tie to save yourself. There's no reason for it here. I didn't like it back in Season 3 when Big Tom would just cast votes on Clarence to teach him a lesson and put him in his place. But at least in that season, tiebreaker rules applied. There is nothing doing that here. Sandra, eye on the prize.
It's a waste of a vote.
I mean, the only thing that it could do is basically get under John's skin and maybe throw him off, and he goes into a giant tailspin and then ruins his own game.
But you're supposed to be in an alliance at this point. That's the thing. It's not like she thinks they're still working together. It's a bad move. It's a bad move.
It is a bad move.
I guess in that case, it doesn't really make sense.
So for best player of the episode, I'm giving it to Johnny Fairplay. He formed an alliance with Burton, Lil, Dara, and Tawana to take out Rupert, and he was the one who coached Lil up on how to play this. So I'm giving it to Fairplay.
I have no qualms with that. That is absolutely the right move.
Sounds good to me.
And worst player, I'm giving it to Sandra. She calls out John at Tribal Council. She's on the wrong side of the vote. Votes for John for some stupid reason. And she overheard Burton and John's conversation that was kind of sketchy and did nothing with that.
And the only thing I can add to that, because I agree that it's Sandra, is that during that same confessional where she talks about what she heard, she said, the 5 would remain loyal. This is the kind of thing that does not age well. I mean, this is aged like milk material. Don't make declarations about people's behaviors in confessional. It just doesn't look good. So, Sandra.
So we lose Rupert here, which was my new winner pick.
Rip.
So here we go again. And this time I'm going to switch over to Burton, which is what I did when I was a kid, and I stand by this move. I think this is the right call. Just Burton is playing really well at this point. He's not perfect, but,
no one is.
Yeah, no one is in this season. Sandra and Krista are on the bottom. Darren, Tawana, who? Lil, what? No. And that leaves Burton and Johnny Fairplay, and Johnny Fairplay can't beat anybody. There's no reason to pick Fairplay because he cannot win against anyone.
Yeah, if you're picking for someone to go to the finale, Fairplay is a great choice.
But he will lose to everyone.
Correct. Even someone who's an outcast.
Even like a Dara. Even Lil. Even Tawana. Anyone can beat Fairplay. So, Burton is my new pick.
Is Fairplay the only person who cannot win this game right now?
Well, technically, since only one person cannot win the game, just by pure logic, Fairplay is bottom of the barrel.
Fairplay is the guy who cannot win, in my opinion.
But we lose Rupert here. Do you guys want to see Rupert play again? He's coming back, so.
Yes. And that is actually a very cautious yes. I've said it in the past. I don't remember who it was about, but in previous recap episodes, I've said no on people because I think that we've gotten all that we can see out of him. I think that we've seen the best of Rupert.
You're not wrong.
Exactly. I don't think we'll get any other amazing moments out of Rupert. It's possible that we can, but what I want to see is whether or not he's learned anything that from this time around and can bring that in a more strategic way next time. So that's me being optimistic about it, but I would say yes.
I say yes. I have some things to say about Rupert. Rupert was perfect for season 7. It's a pirate-themed season. Dude looks like Blackbeard. He's physical. He's a little bit domineering. I mean, he takes a backseat leadership role and kind of expects to get a lot of respect because he's the provider of his tribe, and that does take him a long way. I was very happy to see him get voted out. And that might be a hot take.
It is a hot take.
And I figured it would be. I was ready to see him go because it wasn't Survivor with him on it. It was the Rupert Boneham on an island show.
It was a reality TV show.
And then he would have a guest come and sit down and they would talk to Rupert, or they would go on a wacky adventure and play a game. It was basically a nighttime talk show, except instead of talking, they did Survivor-esque things on a pirate-themed island. And I was actually very excited for the game to begin after Rupert was voted out. That being said, whenever you're interesting and you play a certain style of game, I'm okay with you coming back again. I would agree with Josh that maybe he can change his game the next time he comes out. Try and work on that threat level diminishment. I doubt that he can. I don't think that's who he is, but you know what? That would be really cool if we could see it happen because I've been proven wrong before with returning players being able to change it up.
It was after, I think, season 28, Kageon, our Survivor on Reddit, they did a ranking of every incarnation of every Survivor player ever. So, it wasn't just ranking Rupert, it was ranking every version of Rupert, Rupert 1.0, Rupert 2.0, etc. So, Rupert's on there 4 times. So they did a ranking from worst to best, and Rupert 1.0 got in the top 10. He didn't win, but I think he was number 7 overall. And I can't argue with that. Rupert, it was for the longest time my favorite Survivor contestant, and then I grew up a little bit. But going back and watching 1.0, Pearl Islands, it doesn't change how much I loved Rupert the first time. Yeah, there's holes in this game. Oh, yeah. But I love this incarnation of the character. I'd love to see him back. It's not going to go well for my taste in Rupert. Not going to lie, I'm not a big Rupert fan anymore. I never want to see him play again. He's very annoying to me now, but I love Rupert 1.0, and I can go back and watch Pearl Islands and feel the same way. I was devastated for that he went home when he did. And at this time, I wanted him to come back and play so bad. It's too bad we're going to have to wait such a long time for him to come back.
Right.
So I'm pumped to see Rupert come back. So let's move on. Episode 11 is called The Great Lie. Iconic. So back at camp, Sandra dumps out all of the fish that Rupert caught for the tribe, and she just, in a fit of anger, she just dumps it out in the woods, and gets back in time before anyone notices, before the big fight starts. Sandra gets into a big argument with like Johnny Fairplay and Burton and everybody, and they realize the fish is gone, and it all gets blamed on Krista, who didn't do anything. Guys, what? I didn't do anything.
The most memorable moment of the season for Krista.
Yeah. And Sandra's like, what? It wasn't supposed to get blamed on Krista, but as long as it ain't me.
Tugs on shirt. I was too busy yelling and making up a stink. Which, by the way, I love this. I used to do this as a kid with my parents. Like, did you do this? No, I was off doing something else you don't approve of. So if you admit to doing something else that is not being approved of, that might take the spotlight off of the bigger bad thing that was occurring. So I actually really dug this move.
Wow, Derek. That's brilliant, Derek. Wow, I never thought of that before. That's a genius idea. Next time I get in trouble for robbing a bank, I'd be like, that wasn't me. I was off counterfeiting or something. I don't know.
Killing a guy.
I was off killing a guy.
Derek, did you break Alex's bicycle? No, I was downstairs playing Halo 3. You're grounded from Xbox. I know.
You got me.
But you don't have to pay for a new bicycle. That's brilliant, Derek. No, I didn't dump out the fish. I was off looking for an idol. Something like that. That's pretty brilliant, actually. That's not a bad thing to have in your back pocket if you ever get into a sticky situation.
That one's in Manipulation 103.
Okay,
there you go.
I like it. That's not something you want to lead with, but it's definitely a good backup one.
Anyone who watches Avatar: The Last Airbender, there's a move where you redirect lightning. You know, you don't ever want to have to use, and it doesn't really do you any good, but it might save you.
It might. Just might.
That's what this is. You're just redirecting lightning.
So we're going to go to an early nomination for the most memorable moment of the season, I would hope, for Josh.
It might be a nomination.
We get the loved ones reward, and we get the infamous dead grandma lie. Johnny Fairplay, his buddy Thunder D, comes out, and Johnny Fairplay goes, "Hey, how's grandma?" "She died, dude." And Johnny Fairplay just leans into it, and he's like, "Oh, man, my grandma died. She was going to come out and be my loved one when she's not here." And everybody buys it, and everybody's crying, except Sandra. Sandra doesn't believe it for a second. And so in the loved one challenge, you have to make the loved ones walk the plank. Sandra immediately targets John. Dude. So this is a bad move for Sandra. This is a very bad move for Sandra.
It's great TV.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good for TV.
Because the first loved one to take a step on the plank
it's
Johnny
Fairplay's buddy. Thunder D takes a step. And Johnny's like, "Well, I just want to get some information about my grandma, but some people don't give a crap." And everybody gets kind of mad at Sandra. And Sandra, even if you don't believe him, good on your BS meter, you just got to play with it. You just got to let it go. It's a loved one's visit. You got to let it go.
The beauty of this lie is that even if you are sure in your heart of hearts that he is bullcrapping, if everybody else believes it, that perception is reality. And you know what? You might have to find a more delicate way to dance around that one. I'm not sure the move, because on a season with Lil, in particular Lil, I don't know, and especially with Lil being in a swing spot position where you kind of need to share your reasons for votes and decisions, I don't know how you go about saying, "Yo, I think he's lying about his dead grandma." So this was a genius move, and accidentally maybe more genius than it was intended to be.
It gives Fairplay the option to swear on his grandma. He just is going to do that a couple times. "I swear on my grandma's grave," all that kind of stuff. It gives him that option, and people will mostly buy it, again, except Sandra, which is a good piece of ammo to have in your belt, as long as you don't overuse it. So here's my thoughts on swearing on your loved ones. It's kind of dicey. A lot of people will get weird about it, and we're going to see it a few more times throughout Survivor that a lot of people don't like when you do that. And I'm not a big fan of it either, but I would, if someone, let's say I'm on Survivor, and someone comes up to me and be like, "All right, Ryan, you got to swear on your loved ones that you're going to do this." Well, if you say no, they're going to vote you right out for not doing it. So if someone approached me and asked me to do it, I would say, yes, I will swear on whatever loved one you choose. Otherwise, I'm gone. So if someone put me in a situation where I have to swear on a loved one, I would do it. I wouldn't lead with that. I wouldn't be the one to bring it up. I wouldn't make people swear on a loved one. That's my opinion on that.
I think that's the correct stance. I think that's the only time that you should do it, not because of any moral line, in my opinion, but more because it's something that people, I think, have been desensitized to now. The last time that I remember it working successfully, at least, was Tony, basically.
I thought of this brilliant idea of creating a fake family member. I had this brother who I love dearly, and he died tragically. And I just talk about him all the time on the island and say how much a close relationship I had with my brother. I don't actually have a brother. And then we get to the final tribal council, and people be mad at me. "You swore on your brother, who you're so close to." I'm like, I actually don't have a brother, so I wasn't swearing on anything.
See, I wouldn't bring that up till after the votes.
Well, if somebody accused you or got mad at you at the tribal council, that's when I would bring that card. I'll be like, "It doesn't exist."
I guess for my stance on the issue, I don't care if you swear on anyone, because a good player doesn't take anything they hear at face value. And if you do, and you take that personally, yeah, if you're going to be swearing on something, you just need to know that the person that you're talking to, you need to know how they're going to interpret that and how that's going to influence their vote, assuming you can beat them, right?
Right.
And that's just a fair gamble. But I think it's absolutely fair play. I don't think it should be, I don't think it's something you should shy away from. I also don't mind putting someone into that position, especially if it's someone who is straight-laced, maybe too honest and too loyal for their own good. Make them swear on a family member and just force them to be uncomfortable, and then you get the information you want and you're good to go.
That's a good point.
I think this is absolutely something that is within the realm of possibility, but it is more high risk, high reward because you're gambling with a jury vote. But beyond that, I think that this is perfectly good. But if you go back to season 7, this was this was innovative. This was pioneering for the game. I will say that I didn't know what season it occurred on, but I absolutely knew about Johnny Fairplay's dead grandma lie. There's a whole subplot line in The Big Bang Theory where Will Wheaton has a dead Meemaw, and I want to know if they were referencing Survivor.
Probably, because this is one of those moments that everyone knows about.
Like, people who haven't watched Survivor, they know about Richard walking naked on the beach, and they probably know about the dead grandma lie.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things.
This is one of, if not the greatest moment in Survivor history. This is
Top 5.
easily top 5, probably in my top 1. I can't think of a moment I love in Survivor more, maybe apart from a certain person winning for a second time. Besides that, this might be my favorite moment in Survivor history. I love this so much. It's so funny.
And what was even better for me, watching it the first time, because, by the way, you will believe him.
Oh, yeah.
Through the whole reward challenge.
He's
if you
so
don't know.
good.
But I already knew. So I'm just like, oh my, what? And I was like, how long is the edit going to lie to us? And then, I mean, no sooner do they leave the reward challenge or they're walking down the beach. And it's like, dude, they believed me.
Excellent performance, sir.
He's like, what? Oh, dude, I remember this. Oh, I remember
twist.
so much when right as it broke away from it, and I'm just like, what? Seriously, we're doing this now? Okay.
Yeah, they give the reward to fair play, basically. And it worked perfectly. Brilliant. Yeah, the only person who sees through it is Sandra, and
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter. So that night, Sandra gets Tawana to go with her to spy on Burton and John. And this is a classic. This is like Sandra's biggest move. She does this all the time. A couple of times throughout all of her gameplays where she'll go and spy on people. It's great. I love it. Sneaky Sandra.
It's spying without the shack.
It's spying without the shack. So they go and enlist on Burton and John's scheming and plotting. And then they actually hear a good amount. And you're like, oh, okay. So they're going to get the girls together and vote out Burton and John.
That'd be a great move.
It's not going to happen, but that's what you think is going to happen. It's bizarre.
I don't even know why they bothered to show it to us, other than the fact that it made good TV, and maybe they were going for the old switcheroo. But I was very disappointed.
Yeah. It's a little anticlimactic. It's like, oh, nothing happens. So we get this word scramble immunity challenge, which Burton initially wins, but Jeff has to recall it. And it turns out Burton spelled a word wrong, which is how you get DQ'd from the challenge for doing that. So Burton gets eliminated, and they have to do a showdown, and ends up going to Dara. So Dara wins immunity. Oh, Dara's on this season?
Good
Purple
for
Dara.
her.
So the new plan is to vote out Burton. Okay, great. We're going to get the girls together. We're all going to vote out Burton. That's an awesome move.
This would be great.
The right move. John somehow gets Sandra and Krista on board to vote out Tawana, and he promises them a Final Four deal. He's like, I guarantee you guys Final Four with Sandra and Krista. And I don't remember if he says Burton or Lil. It might be Burton. I think it's Burton, actually, coming to think about it. But Sandra and Krista buy this. It's not a great look for them, because it's Johnny Fairplay. He's full of crap.
And Sandra, you already suspect him of lying about his dead grandma. Why are you believing a word coming out of his mouth?
It's not a good move. So at Tribal Council, it ends up being 5 votes for Tawana and 2 votes Burton. Tawana and Dara vote for Burton. It should have been Burton. It's mind-blowing that Burton doesn't go home here.
Well, and this is the point. Like, you're far enough in the game where you have, 7 people left?
Yep, this is the final 7.
This is basically the point in the game where you get a solid 4 together, and you can just drive that to the end.
Yep.
But the key is that you need to have that final 4 be filled with people who you can beat.
Keyword is solid as well.
Yes, that is also very important.
And this is not a solid 4 that Fair Play is proposing, because Fair Play is in it. Any Final Four deal with Fair Play is not solid. Yeah, Burton should have been the one to go here, not Tawana. This is a bad move. So, Derek, who do you have for best player of the episode?
Johnny Fairplay. Pull off the dead grandma. One person suspects you. It doesn't even matter because they're a prick if they even bring it up. And for some reason, somehow, you got all the fire drawn off your biggest ally and onto somebody else. And it keeps you in a power position for another vote. I don't know why they believed him, despite their own ears. So I have to say fair play. I have to. I there's no other option.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I don't know how he got Sandra and Krista to join forces with him to eliminate Tawana and save Burton, but he did it. Best move of the episode, and one of the best moves of the season, if not the best. I don't know how he did it, but he did it. And then the whole dead grandma lie is almost second. You take all that out of here, and he's still best player of the episode. And throw that in, and it just makes it better. So it's fair play.
Cherry on top.
Is that 3 straight episodes?
Yes, it is.
Where he's the best player?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
And
I have thoughts on Johnny Fairplay as well that I'll share.
yeah, and he was the worst player of the pre-merge. That made it. Of the eight core people who made the pre-merge without getting voted out, Fairplay was the worst of those 8. He had not a great pre-merge. But he's coming back.
Yeah, at least I voted that way. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and you guys brought me around because I originally said Sandra, and I changed my mind.
Yep.
How about for worst player?
So I wrote down Dara because I felt like she lost her only real ally, and she was a part of this coup that was supposed to occur to take out Burton.
She did her part.
She did her part to try and take out Burton. So I'm going to flip it to Sandra. Sandra was able to deflect the fish thing, which was awesome. I love the whole, I was doing one thing you didn't approve of, but I didn't do the thing that you're accusing me of. So that works great. But you have some pull with your alliance, or the alliance you were trying to create. You heard it with your own ears. Why didn't you stick with T and Dara and take out a big power player that you know you can't beat physically and is in a bigger power position than you left in the game? She had a chance to really start playing and make a name for herself right here, and she doesn't do it, and I don't know why. So to me, it's Sandra.
See, I went with Krista. Kind of on the same, she does pretty much all the same stuff as Sandra, except she doesn't go on the spying trip. But she does get all pinned for the fish incident and can't convince everyone that it wasn't her. And then she also buys John's lies and puts it to Tawana. So the fish thing is the tiebreaker for me, so I'm giving it to Krista.
That's fair.
I think that's a fair tiebreaker. I'd side with you, Ryan.
Thanks, buddy.
And I don't know if we really updated people, but since I don't watch the episode, I don't really give out a best or a worst. I just side with one of you two.
Yeah, if he has watched the episode, like the merge boot or the finale, he gets to make his own decisions. Episode 12, Would You Be My Brutus Today? I don't know why that's the title of the episode, because nobody says it, but whatever. So Dara, John, and Lil, it's a team reward. The three of them all win, and they're going to go on like a spa trip together. And Johnny Fairplay just starts ordering food for everybody. Like, hey, he's like, I'll order. And he orders for Lil, he orders for Dara. And I would be so pissed if he did that to me. I don't think he would with another guy. I don't think Fairplay would have done that. But if I had been on this reward and Fairplay is ordering my food for me, I'd be like, dude, screw you. I want a damn steak.
Is this like all you can eat, or you only get to order one thing?
So what the thing was, basically these servers were on call for the entire duration that they were on the reward. So they could call at any time, get more food, order whatever they wanted. They had a selection that they could choose from. And so I was actually going to respond to Ryan and say, I think he actually said, guys, this place is kind of fancy. If you don't mind, I'm really good at this. I know my stuff. Would you care if I ordered for you? And if they say yes, I say go for it. Have fun. It's not a real big thing, but you always need to be careful with taking away other people's choices.
I would never presume to do that to anyone ever. Like, this is one of the douchiest things I think he does the entire season.
And I actually disagree, because it's common in, I don't want to say like socialite high class society, for the man to be showing the woman a good time, right? And part of that whole experience is they will order for you. And I know you see this in every movie ever, where it's like white knighting and the girl gets a salad and the guy gets the surf and turf and stuff like that. It didn't feel like that's what was going on here. And we actually get confessional from Lil saying, I actually really liked that Johnny was doing this for me. I got to see a side of him, Johnny the person, not Johnny the player, not the guy that everyone kind of presumes him to be based on the way that he acts and talks. He's a partier, he likes to be unclean and whatever. So I think it actually built up his image with Lil.
Sure.
And it was probably neutral at best with Dara, who was next to go home anyway.
Dara even said, like, I like when a man takes charge.
Yeah.
But this rubs me the wrong way so hard. I hate this so much.
I mean, I think I'll actually take it a step further, because I agree with Derek on this. As long as you're not coming off as like super pretentious or anything, like, this could show that guy or girl, like, even if he did this with like Burton or something that he was along with, like, this can show that you maybe know a little bit about the person and what they might like. Lil, I think that you'd really like this. And then you order, and if you hit it out of the park, that can be like, wow,
what
Johnny,
if
you're right.
Well, then they can order. Then it's not like this is the one meal that they get to order. They can order whatever they want.
I don't know, man. I think this was such a risk. It worked out for John just fine. But, like, if they're too, like, timid to say, oh, no, don't order for me, and they're just going to, like, stay there and they're going to just stew on that for a while, be like, screw John. Who does he think he is?
And you know what? You need to be able to make a read on that. I think that's something, like, if this is something that you're good at, this is something that you're proud of, try and show it, and I do think that's okay. And for the record, Ryan, you are a connoisseur in one thing for food. It is Taco Bell.
Yeah. So I don't want
you're
Johnny Fairplay to order for me, because I'm happy with Taco Bell.
And you know what? If he tried to order for you, you could be like, actually, no, I
good.
want this.
Actually, flip the other way around. If your reward randomly is Taco Bell, you could be like, actually, you know what? There's this hidden gem that a lot of people don't know about, and you order it for them.
No, I would never do that ever in a million years. I'd be like, here's what I get, and this is what I really like. But everybody likes their own thing at Taco Bell, and you do you. Because I believe in freedom.
It's almost like they couldn't order more food if they wanted to.
Wow.
They come back from this reward, actually, and say, like, oh, we ate all night. This wasn't their only meal. Yeah. So I'm good with this move.
I hate this.
I'm good with it.
Don't tell people what to do. It's risky.
You can always order something else.
Don't take choices away from people. It's bad. John lucks out here. I despise this move. Anyway, later on in the night, he annoys Lil, and Lil goes off to pout. So John's like, all right, I'm going to make a final 2 deal with Dara. Yeah, that's the right move.
Yeah, it's fair. And by the way, it was kind of out of the blue, too, because they were, like, sitting on a couch, and John was like, no, Lil, come back here. We need to talk about strategy. And Lil's like, I'm done talking to you. And then she goes to bed, and Johnny's like, I guess we're done.
I guess this is going to be a final 2 talk and
Dara.
not a final 3 talk.
Meanwhile, Burton is non-committal about going to the Final Four deal that John made with Sandra and Krista. Apparently, he didn't talk about it with Burton. So Burton's like, oh, I don't know about that when Sandra and Krista ask him about it. Burton, it's like the Ghostbusters. If someone asks if you are God, you say yes. If someone asks if you're in a Final Four together, you say yes. You can always lie about it. But Burton's just like, I don't know. He does the whole Larry David thing.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it right now. I need to talk to John. No. You might as well just show him one of your hands. You're at the poker table and you're just showing them one of the cards you have. That's all they need sometimes. Don't do it. Just say yes.
And I mean, even if you're looking like long game here, like put yourself forward how many days into Final Tribal. If you have to argue your point that you were the one making decisions, if some people know or had firsthand experience that it's like, I have to go talk with John, that automatically shows that you were not the one in charge.
You were subordinate.
Yeah.
You were subordinate to John. And if someone says, I don't want to think that far ahead, well, that means they're either, A, dumb, or B, they're not plotting with you. That means they're against you. That means they should vote you out. So Burton should go here. Sandra and Krista should immediately just turn on Burton for this one. And then Burton does the same thing with Lil later on about a Final 2 deal. He's like, I don't want to think that far ahead, Lil.
Just say yes.
This is the big hole in Burton's game. He wants to be too nice, and he wants to be non-committal. He wants to be the good cop to John's bad cop, and you can't do that all the time.
He needs to a lot just because of where he came from with the Outcast twist. Like, You need to make as many alliances here and try to not make anyone mad along the way, but you can't do that 100% of the time.
You got a lot of people.
I'm actually going to go a step further. You got voted out, and you came back in. You, in my eyes, still need to pull a Chris Underwood here. Don't apologize. Play with reckless abandon. You were given house money, and you can't walk out with any of it. So,
just go
play.
Nuts.
Go nuts. Say yes.
Be the Rick Devens. Be the Chris Underwood.
Now, part of me wonders if the ghost of Rupert Past was haunting Burton for the rest of his game, where he was like, well, the first time I came across as being too mean, being too much of a jock, so now I got to be nice guy Burton.
Rupert takes down Burton.
So Rupert from the grave is
That's funny.
Poisoning Burton's game.
Ghost pirates!
But the only thing I would think that it kind of fights that is we do hear several confessionals of him saying, like, John is the one who's burning these people, and if I sit in the Final 2 with John, people will remember who burned them, and, who helped to burn them, but didn't actually hold the fire.
Sure.
You got to get there first, though.
Yeah. Got to get there.
Yeah.
So we get to the immunity challenge, which is really cool because it's muskets. They're shooting muskets.
This is so cool looking.
I love this season. This is a great challenge, and Dara wins it. Yeah, it makes sense. She's from the South. She's probably fired guns before. I wouldn't be shocked.
I think that's 2 wins for Dara, isn't it?
Yep, that's 2.
It is 2 in a row.
So Sandra and Krista, they want to try and get Dara on board to vote out Burton. But she won't because she's got a Final 2 deal going on with John.
And John loves Burton.
Yep, won't do it. And Dara's like, no, we're going after Lil instead. That's the plan. So she ends up telling them Lil's the target. And they believe it. So they go to tribal council, and Sandra and Krista vote for Lil. But it's 4 votes for Krista. The main alliance gets rid of Krista because she's actually pretty good in the challenges.
Yep.
So Krista goes home. So Dara, what really should have happened here is Dara should have forced the tie because she's not actually in a Final 2 deal with John and is not very smart for believing that she is because it's Johnny Fairplay. She even says in a confessional in this episode, well, John likes to lie, but sometimes he tells the truth.
That is probably the worst confessional. Sandra had a bad one where she said the 5 is definitely sticking together, but I remember thinking, because I watched both of these episodes back to back, and I remember thinking, oh my goodness, John tells a lot of lies, but he tells the truth sometimes. Okay, thanks there. That was real insightful.
At this point in time, Dara, Sandra, and Krista are 6, 5, and 4. That's how it's looking. That's going to change, but that's how it looks now. So, Dara, you're not going to make it anywhere. You got to force a tie.
And also, you have to do something. I mean, you're winning some immunities, but you have no social foothold in the game. You're just kind of getting...
She's just kind of there.
Yeah, you're on a raft adrift on the tides.
So this honestly should have been a tie, and then who knows what happens at that point. Maybe somebody flips, maybe not, but we should have gone to a tie and gone to maybe rocks.
At the very least.
This is one of those situations where I think we should have gone to rocks, probably. I think that would have been everybody's best move, because we have a clear 1-2-3 and maybe a new 1-2-3 with Sandra, Krista, and Dara. They can make their own 1-2-3.
Yeah.
Go to rocks. Maybe Burton will go. Maybe Fairplay will go. Derek, who do you got for best player?
I have Johnny Fairplay.
Okay.
Again. And I know that you're not a fan of him ordering the food move, but that played into my picking Johnny because he was able to build a social bond with Lil and a social bond with Dara on this excursion, be able to show a side of him that's not like the devious side, which I think plays into everyone once again going along with him and not voting out a clear, obvious choice in Burton, even though Dara has 2 straight immunities. Come on, get rid of Burton here. John has saved his ally once again. And for that reason and that reason alone, Johnny is the best player of this episode.
Yeah, I agree with you saying it that way. You know, obviously the reward thing annoys me, but it doesn't hurt him at all.
Right.
He does annoy a little bit, but he makes the final 2 deal with Dara, which allows them to make the move to knock out Krista. Burton kind of sucks in this episode. Yeah, so I think you're right. I think it's Johnny Fairplay.
And then for worst, I have Lil. Again, I don't think it's in her best interest to have voted out somebody like Krista, which is someone I think that she had a real chance of maybe beating at the end. It's dicey because she's an outcast, right? Storming away from someone trying to have strategy talk with you on a reward, and basically getting out of the quote-unquote final 3 deal. Yeah, you're making final deals with everybody left and right all the time. You need to sift out which ones are real and which ones are fake. But you need to get into the fake ones in order to decide which ones are real. And I think that Lil is showing that she's limiting herself socially and, again, doesn't take out Burton. So even though she's on the right side of the vote, it's for the wrong reasons.
See, I'm actually going to go with Burton just because he was so non-committal with this Final 4 and Final 2 deals, and he does nothing right. Yeah, he doesn't go home in this episode, and the vote goes the right way for him, but that was 100% on John, not at all on Burton.
And that's fair. I wouldn't argue with you on that one. I actually think you swayed me to Burton.
So is the Burton and Lil alliance dead here, or
starting to die?
There are cracks, some fissures.
Yeah, our first amount of cracks. Because Burton was not committal to her about the final 2 deal.
Yeah, because I guess that's the only thing that would keep me from, if I was in Lil's position, kind of going towards Burton, is if there's something manageable there that she can really tie into bringing, I mean, maybe even him to final 2 or final 3. So.
All right, so episode 13 is called Mutiny. So Dara is the next target. Fairplay and Burton tell Lil, hey, let's take out Dara next. And this upsets Lil. It's like, I thought we had a final 4 deal. Stop stabbing everybody in the back. Lil, welcome to Survivor. And Dara is a good person to take on next because she's won 2 immunities in a row. And she hasn't really made any enemies. Sandra's made enemies, but she's no threat in the challenges. I think the next move is to get rid of Dara. Because you have your Lil and, Lil, John, and Burton. And get rid of Dara. Get rid of Sandra.
Yeah, I guess the only argument would be whether or not you can beat her. And if you don't think that you can beat her, then get her out. If you think you can, it's fine.
I think the next move should be Burton here.
Well,
but
yeah.
I think whenever you have to keep up a facade of an alliance, I think Dara is the right choice for this particular iteration of a voting block to target.
So Burton ends up winning reward, and this is the beginning of the end, I think, for Burton, because he's going to take Johnny Fairplay with, and this is one of the worst moves of the season, if not the worst move. Actually, this is not the worst move of the season, but it's up there.
Second worst.
Second worst move of the season.
This is a bad move.
Because they're like, oh yeah, the girls, they're so dumb. They'll never turn on us.
If for nothing else, in the court of public opinion, this reward was awful.
It's not a good look for either of them. And again, I don't think Fairplay cares.
No, at the time, this was angering, but not career-ending.
Sure.
In today's cancel culture, this would go over so poorly.
Oh yeah, this is aged like milk.
Yes, this is aged like milk.
Yeah, this is not a good look for them at all. And it's very short-sighted on the game moves because Burton's like, man, I just like hanging out with John. I just want to have a reward where we can have fun. You can have a lot more fun with $1 million, Burton.
Yeah, do this after the season.
Yeah. It's such a bad move. And shocker, surprise Pikachu face, the girls make an alliance.
Exactly the thing that, well on reward, the guys said they weren't worried about because there's no way those girls can come together and do anything.
And this is my theory on reward challenge has been, don't win them. Here we go. From here on out, there's no more excuses. We've seen it We've manifested this. It's happening. Burton's going to go out here because of this BS. This is an example in my theory on Survivor why not to do this. This is one of my sources.
I mean, because even if you, like, change history here and switch out John for Dara or someone, or Sandra, you probably don't want to take Lil, but if you're Dara or Sandra, this could be completely avoided. It doesn't, obviously, there's still a possibility that the girls can come together, but this season could be completely different if this one choice wasn't made.
But Burton does win a car, and
thank goodness.
And that is not a curse.
And this is not the worst thing that's ever happened with a car on Survivor. Every season we build it up a little bit more.
Yeah, because I still don't understand what this means. But that's okay.
So far to this point, anyone who's won the car has not won the Survivor. The car curse. It's a real thing.
The car curse.
The car curse. This is a real thing. This is very widely talked about. Even in season 6, people were talking about it. Whoever wins the car does not win the game. It's been true since season 2 on because they didn't have it in season 1.
So eventually what's going to happen is we're going to have somebody win the car and someone will be like, well, they won the car, they can't win the game. And then they're going to go on to win the game as well. And another car probably. But we'll see.
We'll see.
Maybe.
We'll see.
So Lil's worried about being third place no matter what, but Dara and Sandra are like, no, you won't be third no matter what. But you will be if you go with Burton and John.
Fair argument.
Yeah.
Now, I think people wanted her to be third regardless. But it doesn't matter.
So Burton and John return, and Dara and Lil actually just spend the whole time bashing Sandra. Like, man, she sucks, doesn't she? She's just got to go. And Sandra just plays dead. She's just laying in the shelter. She's like, yeah, it's me. Leave me alone. It's great. It's great.
It's a good move. It would never work in Modern Survivor. If you come back from a reward challenge and people are acting like this...
Red flags.
Red flag, red flag, red flag. If you're playing Minesweeper, you just mark everything. I would never buy it for a second. A skeptical mind is a healthy mind. A paranoid mind can get it to be unhealthy, but you need to be more skeptical. And to the guys' credit, I think that they were very skeptical, and I don't know that they bought it hook, line, and sinker. Maybe hook, line, but no sinker. Not like it would have mattered. I don't know why you need to try and fake anything at this point. If you've got 3 and they've got 2, you don't really need to hide it.
You don't really need to.
But I'm also for not telling somebody that they're going home, so...
The one thing that does annoy me is Johnny gets swears on his grandma and gets Sandra to swear on her kids. And Sandra's like, in a confessional, but secretly I was saying in my head, I swear on my kids I'm going to take out you and Burton. Just like, okay, quit trying to like justify yourself to the audience and just own that you're doing it. It's like we talked about earlier. If I was ever in that situation, I would do it and be like, I got to do it. Don't feel great about it, but I got to do it. I don't like when people try and be like, oh, I had my fingers crossed. Oh, I had my toes crossed. Just own your game. It's fine.
In fairness, she did not have her fingers crossed, and I have no problem
but
with
it's
the way
same
she did it.
General thing.
I have no problem with the way she did it.
I think she was just more saying that it was her communicating in a confessional that she was being clever and not justifying it.
It was annoying.
You can have your own opinions, as I think we've come across a few times in this episode. And you will not change.
But she does make a final 3 deal with Burton and John at this point. We've heard this one before.
Nah, and good move. Just say yes.
Yeah, just say yes.
As long as it's not me.
So Dara ends up winning immunity again for the 3rd time in a row. The plan is to get rid of Lil. Burton and John want to get rid of Lil. And this is interesting to me. And I think it kind of sucks for Lil. Because I think the only person Lil can beat is Fair Play. But they're coming for her. What do you do here? And this is honestly a bad move for Fair Play because he shouldn't be taking out Lil here. So this is a very bad move for Fair Play as well. It's just not good. He shouldn't be going after Lil and putting Lil in this position where she has to turn on Fair Play and Burton.
We've seen Johnny Fairplay surf the waves of this post-merge expertly. He's won so many best players because he's not afraid to cut anyone off at any time. He's just willing to do it. He's willing to go with the flow. Well, at some point, you need to stop the flow. What he was trying to do, I think, was recognize that Dara and Lil, who he went on a reward with, and they might have had a chance to get close, cast Sandra aside. So he was trying to do the classic, take the castaway, bring him in, make a new alliance. And this was not the time to do it. You should have tried to rely on your past relationship with Lil, even if it was a little rocky at moments, and vote out Sandra here. I do think Dara would have been the right move had she been exposed, but because she was not, I do think that the way he did it was pick up the outcast, pick up Sandra, because they felt like she was the weak link, but he should have actually been going for Lil.
I think Burton and John should have gone after Sandra.
Yeah.
Dara would be ideal, but go after Sandra. I think that's a bad move on their part. Lil doesn't really have a choice. She either goes home or she votes out Burton. So I don't know. It's tricky for her, but it ends up being 3 votes for Burton, 2 votes for Lil. And ultimately, that was the right move for the women. And Lil, even Lil, it's the right move. So best player I have is Sandra. She makes an alliance with Dara and Lil. She reassures Lil about not being third place. She plays dead well. She fakes the alliance with Burton and John. And she eliminates Burton. A great episode for Sandra.
It's weird because she has a great episode by not really doing a lot. But it was great in its own way. So I agree with Sandra.
Sounds good to me.
Thanks, Josh.
You're welcome.
And worst player is Johnny Fairplay. He underestimates the women, and he's on the wrong side of the vote. And he should not have gone after Lil, because that's the only person he has a chance against.
With a ton of really bad confessionals to boot, the answer is Johnny Fairplay.
The rise and fall.
Oh, yeah, and what a fall. It's a pretty spectacular fall. And that's the end of Burton. He's one I'd like to see play again, but he's never come back.
And I'm sad to know that. I wish that he would, because I think that he has most of the pieces. He just needs to
Not be voted out.
put it together. He needs to put it together.
He needs to balance being a nice guy and being a cutthroat.
Yeah.
He need to be the pirate with the heart of gold.
Yeah.
He's got both of those things, but he can't put it together. All right, Josh, you and I, once again, have lost our winner picks.
Rip.
Burton is gone. So, we're going into the finale. We got to make new winner picks. Who do you got?
Well, since my options are John, Sandra, Dara, and Lil, I don't like Lil. I don't like John.
Who's Dara?
And the only reason why you would pick Dara is because she can argue the outplay.
Sure.
For her 3 immunities. So there's potential that Dara could make it to the end just through immunity challenges alone. But can she actually win when she gets there? It depends who she goes with. I think that I would have to go with Sandra. It's a toss-up between her and Dara, but just strategically, I've at least seen something from her. Whereas Dara, I've seen a little bit of the physical aspect, and that's about it.
When I was a kid, I switched to Sandra, and I stand by that choice. Can't be Fairplay, and it can't be Lil, and it really can't be Dara with the edit. Sandra's really the only choice to make.
I think there's an argument for Dara. Yes, edit-wise, it doesn't make sense at all. But if you're looking at just like gameplay, if she goes up against Lil or John, I think she wins. So so she can win.
Yes, absolutely. But with what we're being presented as the story,
Correct.
She can't win. But yes, she technically can win. I think she would beat Lil. I think she would beat John. But she's not going to win. That's insane. All right, let's go to the finale, episode 14, Flames and Endurance. Jeff brings in letters from home and some champagne for everybody, and Lil gets super emotional. So Lil's kind of a standard day for her.
It's a Tuesday.
Yeah, and this is actually an episode that I watched.
Yep.
So fun stuff, and it's, I think, probably the worst finale feast I've ever seen.
And John kind of uses that to his advantage. He kind of turns the girls against each other. He's like, oh, Lil's going to turn on the waterworks at Final Tribal Council and beat everybody.
Bunch of hearts and flowers.
That's why no one's going to take you to the end, Lil. Lil's like, Dara, is that true?
Wait, what?
Dara's like, I don't want to talk about it. Lil, I don't even know if I'm going to be here. You're not going to be here, Dara. and Dara is so bad, and John plays them like a fiddle.
Yeah, there's a very easy answer here. It's just saying, no, that's not true. That's all you have to do.
As Dara's talking, John's just over in the corner, like shaking his head, like, or nodding his head, like, yeah, they're gonna vote. Yeah, no, she's full of crap. Fairplay plays this so well.
There's a very easy solution that Dara doesn't play because Dara is Dara. If Johnny Fairplay is willing to put you in this position, you need to be willing to spit it right back at him. So if he's saying, Lil, Dara and Sandra, they're not taking you to the end, Dara goes, actually, yeah, we absolutely are. John, you have backstabbed everybody. You have lied to everybody. You're next. And you know what? Because Johnny Fairplay is Johnny Fairplay, you can likely pull him aside and mend that bridge later and say, try to do that to me again, and you are getting voted out. I think it's a no-lose situation to spit it right back at him and say, do not do that to me. Do not bully me. Now, it needs to be Johnny Fairplay that's doing it, right? But Dara needs to be willing to stand up for herself, like, no, or just lie and be like, no, we're not talking about that at all.
Well, and because as it stands right now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the 3 girls are planning on voting out John, right?
That is the plan, but nobody really wants to do that because everyone wants to take John to the end.
Yeah.
Because that's the right move. But on paper, yes, that's the plan.
I would say because if that's the case, and if everyone's in agreement, everyone's all comfortable with that, in that alliance of 3, then you don't even need to pull John to the side. You can just say it right there and then not even mend the fences later. Yeah, it's probably good to do it, but you don't have to. You don't have to worry about being able to, at least.
So Dara and Lil both start turning on each other. Dara refuses to promise Lil a final 2 deal. So Sandra ends up gets pulled aside by both of them to get rid of Dara or to get rid of Lil. So both of them want to go after each other, and they're like, yeah, we'll use John. We don't need to get rid of him. And Sandra's like, cool, as long as it ain't me.
Now Sandra's in the driver's seat
Yeah,
here.
really for the first time.
And basically she has a perfect path to the end here, because she can take out one of these 2 girls and then hopefully, unless the one remaining one wins immunity, take John to the end.
Yeah. So we go to the immunity challenge, which is a really interesting one. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it is pirate survival trivia stuff, but the jury gets to compete as well as a group. So it's 1v1, v1, v1, v5. Not fair.
A little overpowered.
This is a clear and distinct advantage toward the jury, and for the same reason that I don't like the coconut chop, I don't like this because it's such a reduced chance for you as a single person still playing the game to win. It is a little different because at least you have a chance. Your fate's not in someone else's hands. You could have studied the guidebook, but whatever.
And again, I don't think it's going to matter because it looked like Fair Play was going to be the winner.
Yeah.
He was one away, so I don't think it changes anything.
And by the way, for the record, the best way to avoid a shark attack is, in fact, to not go in the ocean. And the fact that Johnny Fairplay is the only one who got that right is
wonderful.
It's amazing that question's on there and Fair Play's reaction to answering it.
He's like, it
course.
has to be this, right?
Like, duh, and everybody else gets it wrong, including the jury.
I have a great story that goes along with this because anyone who knows me really well, and probably my biggest fear on Survivor, I am deathly afraid of lightning. I believe it's astrophobia. If I am outdoors and there's lightning, I don't care about thunder. I am scared of lightning. And the reason I'm scared of lightning is that if it decides that you're dead, you can't avoid it. Like, if you're outside and you're exposed, like, blink of an eye. Tornado, maybe you can get out of the way, or you can hold on to something, or tie yourself to some pipes. But lightning can't get out of the way. I was talking to my 8th grade social studies teacher about this one time, and he was like, why are you so scared of getting struck by lightning? Your odds are better of getting attacked by a shark. And I said, no, they're not. I live in Minnesota. My odds are much greater getting struck by lightning. And the whole class immediately turns on him, and he just kind of silently nodded like, wow. Yeah, this 13-year-old just got me.
Take that.
That's true.
We have another podcast, the How to Survive a Horror Movie podcast. And this is a future spoiler from that. We don't have this rule for How to Survive a Horror Movie, but it's going to be one day. Don't go in the water. Nothing good has ever happened from going in the water.
Do not disturb the waters.
If it's a clear pool or something, or like a landlocked lake and that's clear and nothing bad lives there, okay, that's one thing. But I avoid oceans because sharks live there. The best way to avoid a shark is not going in the water.
You can't win Survivor if you get eaten by a shark. So there you go.
Nobody wins. Jury wins survival immunity, so nobody.
Congratulations, the jury can't get voted out tonight.
Oh, what a shock! So it ends up being 3 votes for Dara, 1 vote for Lil, and that's the right move. Dara's the biggest immunity threat, even if she tries to pretend otherwise.
Yeah.
I just think Lil and John need each other to win. Those two need to go to the end together. For the two of them, obviously Dara's got to go because Dara's too good at the challenges. For Sandra, she could force a tie, I guess, but if Dara's out of there, she's got a way better chance of winning immunity too. So I think Dara's the right way to go. So, Derek, who do you got for best player?
Sandra, there's an argument to be made for Johnny stirring up chaos and getting it to not be his name even on paper. But I think we all agree that he was not the right move in any scenario. I think it's Sandra.
See, I went with Fair Play because he manipulated the women, mostly Lil and Dara against each other so well, and they got Dara eliminated from the game. I think it's Fair Play.
And since I watched this, I can actually have a voice. I do agree that it was Johnny Fairplay. Just because he got someone out who can beat him. And that honestly is reason enough. Top that off with, at the moment that he was talking with the girls in the hut or whatever, they theoretically were going to be voting him out. Yes, that probably could have changed, but at that moment, as far as we know, they were going to vote him out. And he did something himself to make that happen. That's why I would go with him.
Who do you got for worst player then, Josh?
I actually didn't have anyone. I think that the move was good. Like, if it was anyone, it would almost have to default to Sandra, but that doesn't make sense.
Sure.
So I can't have anyone be the worst.
I agree.
I don't have a worst player.
So we get to the final 3, and we do the classic Fallen Comrades, and in my opinion, this is the best Fallen Comrades in the history of the show.
They got to burn a ship.
Yeah.
By shooting it.
By shooting it with a fireball musket.
Jeff throws a ton of shade on Austin for quitting, and we get Johnny Fairplay doing the fallen comrades thing, which is hilarious. The best part is he's like, for Nicole, he's just like, she's got rockin' bod.
It just plays into the whole narrative that Johnny wants to be the villain, and he's not been hiding it, but he's definitely not hiding it. But to go back to what you said about Austin, I think one of my favorite parts about the post-merge is that Jeff does not miss a trick. He will say anything and everything and every opportunity to say something poorly about Austin quitting, and I'm just like, Jeff, in this particular regard, you are my favorite. You are the best because you are the voice of the audience. You are a fan of Survivor, right? You're not even host Jeff when you're trashing Austin. You are fan Jeff Probst, and I love it.
And then we go to the immunity challenge, and it's basically they got to balance on a platform out at sea without falling over. And Sandra goes out pretty quickly because it's Sandra.
Fair.
But then Johnny Fairplay just keeps trying to make a deal with Lil, and Lil's just not having it. She's like, nope. And John's like, that's not a deal, Lil. This is the downfall of Johnny Fairplay, and it is glorious.
Even though this is the right move for him.
Johnny Fairplay's doing everything right. Logic and reason and numbers, all right. And he's come up against something that doesn't care about logic, reason, and numbers. And that's Lil.
He thought he was an unstoppable force until he met an immovable object.
Yep. And he's been stopped. And it's so funny. It's just glorious. It's an epic downfall. We have this amazing villain. And every amazing villain, they can't really truly make it to the peak until they get their downfall. And Johnny Fairplay gets one of the greatest downfalls in Survivor history because of Lil frickin' Morris.
And I love the quotes by Jeff along the way, too. Just like, I don't think she's having it, Fairplay.
I think Lil just said game on, and Fairplay goes, I think Lil just said game over.
Oh, that's the other part, because Lil, who's like 50-some years old or 50 years old, is like, I do aerobics. You look like you're mighty uncomfortable. I could do this all day.
This is called a squat. Yeah, Lil is Captain America here.
Yes.
I could do this all day.
I could do this all day.
I was making a joke earlier that Sandra is the Deadpool of Survivor because she's kind of has a mercenary attitude and she's got a mouth. So she's the merc with a mouth. She's the Deadpool of Survivor. Lil's Captain America right now.
I don't know who Johnny Fairplay is in this scenario, but...
Thanos.
Perfectly balanced.
Loki, maybe?
No, he's Loki.
I was going to say, because he can't be Thanos because he was not perfectly balanced. He ends
No.
up losing the challenge.
Yeah, he's Loki. So Lil ends up winning immunity, her first immunity win and the most important immunity win. And down goes Fairplay.
Lil's going to Final Tribal.
So back at camp, Sandra plays like the family emotional card, like, hey, I have a family too. I want to take care of them. So that's why you should bring me to the end.
That's the right move.
It's the right move for Sandra. It wouldn't work on hardly anybody else.
And it wouldn't work in today's Survivor at all, I don't think. It might.
Maybe.
Like, the thing is, you got to shoot your shot, right?
Someone like a Nora it might work with, or like a Debbie, or I don't know, your weirdos it might work with. Fairplay is like, everyone hates me. I might get 1 or 2 votes max. Bring me to the end because you'll win.
And I think that's where you do that, but you commit even further to that. So you take basically what Sandra did and go the emotional aspect of it, but tie it into Lil's actual life and say, like, if you bring me, like, this could mean X, Y, and Z for your family, for your kids, whatever you're going to do with the money.
It's a great idea.
And really try to tie it back into the things that she has been closest with and has cried for hours over. Like, you saw this earlier in the episode, how much she cares about it. Show how much of an impact this can be for her.
But that's not going to matter because Lil is going to vote out Johnny Fairplay. Last member of the jury. Terrible, terrible move. Worst move of the season.
Ryan, bona fide $1 million mistake?
This is $1 million mistake. Lil would have beaten Fairplay. They even asked in the reunion show. And those aren't necessarily canon, but like if you just think through the numbers, it makes sense. Rhino, he doesn't like Lil. I feel like he'd vote for Fairplay. Rupert is never voting for Fairplay in a million years. He votes for Lil. Tawana voted for Lil anyway. I feel like she'd probably do it again. She probably doesn't like Fairplay much. Mm-hmm. Krista hates Fairplay. She'd probably vote for Lil. Burton's going to vote for Fairplay. Dara, she could go either way. And Sandra will never vote for Fairplay. So that's at least 4, maybe 5 for Lil. Lil beats Fairplay.
It's close, but...
Yeah, it's $1 million mistake, 100%. And especially because Lil's going to do pretty good at Final Tribal Council.
Yeah, really good.
But Johnny Fairplay is out. Josh, who's the best player of the final 3?
I didn't have one.
Really?
I feel like you could pick Sandra by default, but at the same time, it's like, oh, Lil won immunity to guarantee your spot in the final two, but she took the wrong person, meaning that she is
all right. I'm
gonna
taking
lose.
over because you're speaking insanities. Sandra's the best player of the episode because she keeps Lil to keep her. Lil is the worst player of the episode because she won immunity, but she made $1 million mistake in voting out John. This is the biggest no-brainer of the season.
And I guess the only reason why I said that I'm saying that there wasn't really anyone was because I think that Sandra didn't do anything to cause that. I think Lil was just going to do this no matter what.
I don't know. We saw Sandra saying, hey, I have a family too, and that was Lil's reasoning.
I guess I agree with Ryan because, again, not to reference the horror movie podcast twice in the span of 15 minutes, but there's a character named Kerr who's in one of the Children of the Corn movies. She jumps into a flaming silo willy-nilly under her own power. No one forced her to do it. No one asked her to do it. She was there for no reason.
Children of the Corn 5 for the record.
Yes, and this was a very bad move for her survival odds. This was the worst move, and because of that, it didn't matter how badly everyone else did for the entire movie, because she was so bad in that one moment, she automatically is the worst character in the movie. Because Lil makes $1 million mistake here, I have to automatically say that she is the worst player of the episode. This final three, there's no question, and I guess I would default Sandra to being the best. I see what you mean where you don't want to give it out to someone, but she did sway Lil, and we do get something in the reunion show that kind of confirms that as well, but I know that that's also hindsight thinking. So I see where Josh is coming from, but I do think that Sandra's the best and Lil is the worst.
Sure, Sandra's the best.
Yeah, correct.
I love you, Josh.
I have my reasonings.
It doesn't make sense, but okay.
It makes enough sense to me.
I guess that's the only thing that matters.
I understand where you're going
Thank
from.
you.
I get it.
So that's the end of Johnny Fairplay, but we will see him again. You guys want to see him come back?
Absolutely.
I think my reasoning is very similar to, I think, Rupert's, whereas I think that we've seen all that we really need to out of him, and once they would play again, people know their games or their personality, so I don't think there's going to be a whole lot added on to that person. But same answer as Rupert, where I'm curious. I'm very curious what they would do differently the second time.
See, I think Johnny Fairplay knows that, and that's why he would elevate what he does and become even more outrageous.
See, but that's the thing is everyone, you're so far out of just villain status, you're out there now, that it's gonna be one of two things: either no one's gonna trust you, you're gonna be vote out right away, or you're gonna have the chance to make it far in the game, but you're never gonna have a chance to win unless you completely change your game.
Do a hero turn.
Exactly.
That'd be fun.
Or, yeah, I guess it'd be doing a hero turn. But if you try to elevate the villain stats even more, you're not even gonna have the chance to do that. So it's
Tony
gonna go
game changers kind of thing.
Yeah, it's gonna go one of two ways. Now, again, I would want to see him again to see what he chooses to do.
I agree. I want to see Johnny again. I think I'll have more to discuss about John maybe a little bit later in the podcast, but I absolutely do want to see him again. He's interesting. He's fun. Fun TV. I would hope that the next time he comes out, he's a little less sexist.
Yeah.
If there was a reason to not have him back, I think that those comments in modern Survivor, modern day, he'll never be invited back.
Sure.
And deservedly so. 2003 is a different beast from 2020, and that is a good thing.
Yes.
But based on 2003 standards, I would have him back.
I want Fairplay back so bad. I really would love to see what he can do. Less sexism, please.
Much less. All of it.
More dead grandma. let's just see what happens. More pro wrestler. He's a heel. He is a heel. He does it well. So I would love to see what Fairplay can do with a second chance. Let's do it. All right, so we go to the final tribal council. It's Sandra versus Lil. What could possibly happen? So in the final tribal council, we get opening statements, and Sandra starts off saying she worked hard and she was willing to work with anybody, and that's kind of her MO. She's a mercenary. And Lil worked hard and was nice. So they both worked hard. One was willing to work with anybody, and one was nice. Great.
Advantage no one.
I mean, I'll give it to Sandra by default.
I actually gave advantage to Lil on the opening statement because
Okay, I'll let you go because
I was actually really frustrated with Sandra's opening statement. We don't have to get super dissecting into these at all, but to me, Sandra in her opening statement was like, I tried to play a pretty honest game, but I was also just a number for people when they needed them. No one ever really suspected me or wanted to go with me, but I did my work around camp. And I was like, Yeah, but that was kind of Lil too. Like everything that you just said in your opening statement, Lil also did, but she also strategized and did some stuff. Of course, Lil didn't really capitalize on this all that well, but I felt like Lil had a better opening statement because she kind of took the pressure away from being an outcast initially. She addressed that right up front, which I think is a good thing. Take your biggest deficiency, acknowledge it immediately, and then diminish. Acknowledge, diminish.
Sure. I guess my reasoning, because I agree that Lil actually had a better opening statement.
Okay.
And it was more, yes, the points that were being made were basically the same with a slight edge to Sandra, but it was just communicated better.
Sure.
Lil did a much better job, it seemed like, communicating that versus Sandra, and I was actually pretty surprised.
And I bet you Lil, I'm sure she has to do a lot of public speaking as a scoutmaster, talking in front of all the parents. So I'm sure she's used to this kind of stuff. So I think that gives Lil an edge here. And this is probably the strongest aspect of Lil's game is her final tribal council.
It absolutely is.
She really kills it. And we'll talk about that towards the end about how this stacks up to some other final tribal councils. But brief spoiler alert, it's impressive.
Yeah.
So I only want to talk about 5 of the jury members. We can ignore 2 of them. Burton and Dara, I don't want to talk about. Who cares? But Rhino, we'll start with him. He asks if it's fair for Lil to win because of the outcast twist. And she says, hey, being an outcast was no picnic. That sucked hard. And the only person who knows how truthful that statement is, really, is Burton. So it's good on Lil. I think it's a good answer for Lil. I don't think it's fair for her to win. To be fair, but I do think it's a good answer on Lil's part, because what can you do? You have to defend this somehow, and by saying how much it sucked, which I suspect it wasn't as bad as you might think.
Maybe Burton's vote tells all.
Maybe Burton's vote tells all, but I do think it's a good answer from Lil.
And this is actually really ironic, because we're kind of praising Lil in our final tribal council, and I actually didn't like this answer.
Oh, okay.
Because they don't care about that, or they shouldn't care about how hard it was when you were voted out of the game. Instead, her answer should be yes, because the main question was, do you think that it's fair? I'm paraphrasing, but do you think it's fair that you were out here for fewer days? And the argument should be more, yes, while I was out here for fewer days, I did this, and this while I was back, where Sandra didn't. So it's more like making most of your time while you're there versus, hey, it was still hard for me when I was out of the game, yada yada.
The Chris Underwood.
Sure.
I think both of you are right. Sorry to be the diplomatic answer.
Ooh.
It was a perfectly good answer, but she had a chance to knock this out of the park, and I don't feel that she did that, because she could have, honestly, if I came back, and let's say it was me and Lil who came back, right? And I made it to the end instead of Lil, and someone said, do you think you deserve to win? I think, depending on the person, I would look back and be like, you let me get this far. It was part of the rules. I played fair. They voted me back in. You had plenty of tribal councils to vote me out. It was entirely the jury's decision to allow me to get here. So don't put it on me that I was voted out. Now, asterisk, for me, and I can almost certainly put this out there, I am not ever going to vote for someone who was voted out of the game ever.
Agreed.
But that doesn't mean that you can't leave it all out on the field after you do come back in the game, a la Chris Underwood, who did it the right way.
We're trying to help people who might end up in this situation.
Yes.
How can you win this? We don't want you to, for the record, but we are trying to help you. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, basically swing the perseverance angle from it. Just I overcame all these odds, blah, blah, blah.
And I had to do more. I had to earn my way back into the game, and then I had to do all this stuff to prove that I belong here. So I think Derek is right. Nailed it. Sandra's question is, did you ride coattails? And Sandra just kind of points out, the person people are alluding to is Rupert. Rupert was the third person out after the merge. Sandra's been on her own for a while. And even Krista, she was out two votes after that. Sandra has, even if she was riding coattails, she hasn't been for a while. Sandra's like, no, I never was, and points all that out. And I think Sandra's got a great answer here.
I think it's good. Be confident in your game and say, no. Call it coattails, call it whatever. But yeah, Rupert was gone a long time ago. And frankly, everyone on Drake Tribe had it pretty easy for a long time. You can go ahead and get mad at me for that because Morgan had a harder time, but no. And I liked it. It was a very good answer.
Yeah, I thought it was perfectly good.
Rhino with the great questions. I think those were the best two questions of the whole tribal council.
I think they were the two. I think Rhino was probably the best juror, but I think Fair Play was the most interesting one because his questions were so unexpected but intelligent.
Sure.
Which
like, what?
So Rupert calls out Lil for being a liar, and even though she wears the scout uniform, and this is going to be recurring, and this really annoys me. Basically, Lil kind of gets dragged across the hot coals because she was wearing the scout uniform and yet lied. Lil didn't have a choice. She was thrown overboard with the scout uniform on, and she just had to play the cards she was dealt. Everybody gets so mad at her for this, and I will defend Lil on this. Lil should not be treated any differently from anybody else for the way she played the game.
Now, very curiously, if this was a normal marooning where like they would get to choose their clothes, I wonder if Lil would have worn a Scout's uniform anyways.
Maybe.
Because she says, she said after the fact, like, if I could do this all over again, I would never wear it. That doesn't mean that she wasn't going to anyways.
Sure.
She could, they were there for pictures or whatever, so she wanted to already be representing the Scouts. I think that there's a very good possibility that she would have been wearing that anyways. And
Possibly.
if that's the case, then it's a different conversation, but it's more just an interesting point than anything.
And I still, even if she had chosen to wear it, I still don't think she should be held up to that standard. You're trying to win $1 million. If she doesn't lie and cheat or whatever, she's not going to win.
As long as you're not using those values to justify different things or like bring other people down and say like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, blah, blah, blah.
And I didn't think she was. And especially later in the game, she just kind of, it's like, well, I got to do what I got to do.
I feel like everyone around the table is on the same page that Lil should not be held to the standards of the uniform that she wears, especially when you were marooned without a choice. And that's notwithstanding the fact that I believe that Lil would have worn the Scout uniform. But I also think that the clothes that you choose to wear out on the beach are a tool. Mm-hmm. Going in as a Scout master and an old woman, people are going to think that you are going to be loyal. There's no way you can lie. And so when you are disloyal and you do successfully lie, that's good gameplay. That is subverting others' expectations to your advantage, which is what Survivor is all about. Get your stupid questions about integrity, your stupid questions about honesty, your stupid comments about like the Scout's oath. Get that all out of here. And you want to know what I love? Lil says just that.
Yeah, she's not going to say that right now, but she will say that later on.
Right. To Rupert specifically, if I'm Lil, but I'm also kind of a sassy individual at times, he's like, you're doing your uniform a disservice. I'd be like, Rupert, you had to wear a skirt all season because of the way we were marooned. Do not hold me to the standards of my clothes. You, of all people.
That's a good answer. But she does not do a good job of answering Rupert's question. He wants to know what wasn't a lie. And she just kind of talks about all like the social connections. And I think Rupert was asking like strategically, was there a moment where you weren't lying to me? And Lil doesn't really get that and doesn't really answer the question.
When we voted out Andrew Savage, there you go.
And then Rupert wants to know if Sandra knew Rupert was going to go home, which is a fair question. And she's like, no, I had no idea. I was shocked, and I shoot everyone out afterwards. But also, I told you not to trust Fair Play. I told you so.
It was funny.
And only Sandra can get away with something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Rupert smiles at that. And he's like, yeah, you're right.
Now, interestingly enough, what I didn't realize until we were doing this podcast, Sandra should have realized that something was up because she had overheard them talking and then she never really acted on it. But I do believe her that she never knew.
Yeah. Tawana asked the question, why should the other person not win? And Lil says Sandra could be disrespectful, calling people MFers and rode coattails. Okay.
Good answer.
Good answer from Lil. Sandra says Lil voted out every person on the jury. That's a bad answer. And Tawana's gonna vote for Lil for that reason.
No, I think that you can use that reasoning, but you have to frame it completely differently. Like, you have to use it as a way of, like, Lil voted for everyone here. One, she betrayed all of you. Two, she was just hopping from vote to vote, just riding coattails, you could even say.
Yeah.
Now, she didn't ride the coattails of one specific person, but she was just... nothing was of her own decision. She was just following the vote and all the way to the end. I think you can frame it in a way that is really targeting that way and not as like, wow, look at how she voted for everyone, good job.
And an even better answer is like Lil was just too emotional. She let her emotions get the best of her a lot out here. That's a way better answer. Sandra answered this about as poorly as she could. It's a bad answer.
If it were Modern Survivor, it would have been the worst answer ever. I don't think that it did a ton of damage beyond Tawana.
Yeah, I think it got Tawana to give her vote to Lil.
Yeah.
But That's one vote. And Krista and John, they both bring up Lil representing the Scouts.
Get that out of here.
Get that out of here. But John's question is more like, John is more of an open-ended question, whereas Krista's like criticizing a little bit. John's just kind of like, oh, just talk to me about it. How do you feel you did? And there really wasn't a right or wrong answer about that. It was just like, go, write an essay.
Yeah, it was an open-ended question, which is the best way to ask a question. He was basically Jeff Probst for a second.
Yep. Remember this moment. Remember, John is basically Jeff Probst at this moment. I want you to remember that. Stick that in your head.
I will try to remember this.
Don't make a generalization. It's just this one moment in time.
Just remember that. Lil says, yeah, I regret wearing it. Didn't have much choice, and I did a bad job representing the Scouts, but that's not what we're here to do. This has nothing to do with the Scouts. It's a really good answer.
I think this was her best answer.
Yeah. It's probably your best moment of the season.
I mean, yeah.
It's a really good answer for Lil. And John's question to Sandra is, how do you feel you did as a job of representing Puerto Ricans? And Sandra, another great answer. She's like, I did great because I looked out for number one. And that's, maybe that's because I'm Puerto Rican, because if I'm not going to look out for myself, nobody else is going to. And that is the right mentality for Survivor. The mercenary with a mouth. Sandra Diaz Twine. Deadpool. Survivor Deadpool. Yeah, these are surprisingly insightful questions from Johnny Fairplay and fantastic answers.
He brought succinctly the best of both of their games out with his question. And I don't know if he meant to do it, but it really just felt like Sandra's game was verbalized just by saying, I looked out for me and I did it as me. And Lil said, I'm Lil. Lil is who I am. I am a scout, but that's just one part of me, and I played a game, and these are two different things. I can't think of a better question or a better moment to summarize both of their games than that answer, and it was very impressive.
And I think it was a perfect moment to be able to see, like, oh, like, this is Johnny Fairplay, like, outside of the game. Like, he's actually, like, knowledgeable and can be insightful and isn't just a complete D-bag.
This is a great answers, but it was also like a shading in character moment for Johnny Fairplay as well, which is
where everyone's like, this isn't him as a person.
It was really interesting.
Which we had a couple moments of. I mean, him being like really well dined, like he understands how to order that stuff, and now we're getting this super insightful, open-ended question rather than the nonsense like, oh, Scout's honor, or yes or no, did you backstab me, like jury nonsense that I hate.
Just really interesting.
And let's not forget that before that, he did ask Jeff a question of himself.
None of the above.
Hey, Jeff, can I vote none of the above?
And Jeff's just like,
So the closing statements, Sandra says, she's like, hey, I was really blunt. I played the anybody but me game. That's all I got. And Lil just kind of reiterates she regretted wearing the uniform. And she gets kind of on a soapbox a little bit and kind of reads the jury their rights. It's like, put it aside. I wish I had, and I didn't. But put it aside. I played a game. Give Lil a round of applause.
And she did it without singling anybody out. It was more of like an appeal to emotion. Like, if any of you guys were dropped in my shoes, could you have done what I had done? And it was probably the best closing statement of a final tribal council through the first 7 seasons that I've seen.
And Derek, you mentioned something right afterwards. If we're taking both finalists, combining them together, this is the strongest final tribal council. The two of them combined gave the two strongest performances. We've had stronger ones like Richard Hatch and maybe like a Jenna Maraska who gave better individual performances, but like Kelly wasn't very good and Matt wasn't very good. But Sandra and Lil together, best tribal council.
Absolutely. Through the first 7 seasons, there's no question, in my opinion. Both players, I believe, genuinely helped their causes overall leaving. Sandra had one misstep that I do believe will end up costing her a perfect game. But other than that, I think it was like still strong.
I think they're both probably in the top 5. We have 14 finalists at this point. I think they're both in the top 5.
I would agree with that.
I think Richard and Jenna are in there, obviously. And honestly, Kim Johnson's probably in there, too, from Africa.
She did herself favors.
She did a great job. But Sandra ends up winning 6-1. Tawana votes for Lil. Everybody else votes for Sandra.
Sandra's the winner.
Richard Hatch, I think, still is the best tribal council performance to date, and Colby still is the worst.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's getting changed. I did mention, I think I'm going to put Lil's performance at number 2 so far.
Okay.
And my reason I'm putting her at, well, I don't really have a reason for putting her at number 2. Just watch it. You'll see she is well-spoken. She seems to have a pretty good answer prepared for everything. She does appeal to emotion. it really kind of does all of it, and she owns her game. It takes a little poking and prodding to own her game, whereas I love how in Richard's opening statement, he's like, yeah, I'm a bit of a villain. Yeah, did some backstabbing, but I pioneered the game. People are going to look at this for a long time and be like, wow, yep, he did it first. So, like, I still think that Richard is the best single-person performance to date. And I just mentioned, like, a minute ago that Sandra lost a vote by saying, yeah, Lil had a hand in voting all of you out. I do think that when you have someone with such a strong Final Tribal Council performance, you do need to offset that with a strong performance of your own and mitigate the damage. If we're relating this to any sports, you need to have some sort of push, some sort of defense to this onslaught that was Lil's Final Tribal Council. I don't necessarily think Lil could have won because she was an outcast, but I still think Sandra had, top 5 to date.
So, congratulations, guys. We all had our winner picks win.
Eventually.
We definitely all got it right at the beginning. Just kidding. Derek is the only person who got it right from the get-go.
Yep, and all I can say about it is, obviously I knew ahead of time. I like to make my winner picks based on editology, and I felt like Sandra had that great first episode. If I would have come in at any other episode other than episode 1, I would not have picked Sandra in a million years until probably Final 4.
Sure.
Honestly, a very underwhelming performance for me, knowing that she was a 2-time winner and knowing that she won. I was very underwhelmed overall by the performance because I didn't have any spoilers other than dead grandma. That was literally all I knew.
That's common. Sandra's first game is not flashy, and she doesn't really come in to her game until the end. Like I said, it's a mercenary game, and those aren't typically the flashiest.
Right.
I actually would even say that it's not even she doesn't even play a great game.
She's definitely flawed. And which we'll get into a little bit more in a minute here when we discuss best player of the season and whatnot. But the question is now, did the right person win? Sandra or Lil? It's got to be between one of those two. Between those two, did the right person win?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lil, you got voted out. I mean, that pretty much stops it right there for me.
If she didn't get voted out, what would your answer be?
If we play that game, so Lil doesn't get voted out and we still somehow get to the final 2, I think I might vote for Lil, actually. Stronger Final Tribal Council, and honestly is more integral in how things play out, especially in the post-merge. And plus she'd be able to say, look at this trash tribe that I came from. Talk about rags to riches. In that scenario, if everything, like, let's say that Rhino or like Dara gets voted out instead of Lil, everything else goes exactly the same. Dara gets back in the game, and then where Dara goes out again.
Sure.
I think I would rather see Lil win the game than Sandra.
Here's one thing that does bother me is if Lil had the opportunity to take fair play to the end and doesn't, and takes Sandra, that's the worst strategic move of the season. And that kind of almost takes her out of it in my book. I think by default that gives Sandra the strategic edge over Lil. Both of them are like, oh, they're in and out of it. But Lil made such a bad move strategically that I got to give Sandra the strategic edge. Physically, I got to give it to Lil. Lil won a challenge, Sandra did not. And socially, I feel like Lil annoyed more people than Sandra did, whereas I think a lot of people did appreciate Sandra's brashness. Again, it's close. I would probably give it to Sandra over Lil, but then you throw in the outcast thing and it's Sandra. Hands down.
Yeah, I think I would go with Sandra without the outcast, if you're saying without the outcast twist, because, I mean, those reasons that you're talking about, there's no reason why she can't bring them up right now already. And nothing of those were even brought up in Final Tribal. So I don't know what's stopping her. Like, especially being an outcast, you should go guns a-blazing. And while she had a good Final Tribal, I feel like she could have pointed out all those other things.
I think that most of the jury's minds were made up going into this because of the fact that she got voted out and they were downplayed. I do think that the outcast twist for her was the cloud that she couldn't get out from underneath. But that's just me. I have no proof of that, and I can't dispute the fact that she made $1 million mistake.
We go to the reunion show, which is pretty fun. Too many people are talking about Lil and her lying. Get that out of here.
Yeah.
But we get citing a future contestant, Laura Bonham, Rupert's wife, who will play in exactly 20 seasons.
Jeez.
See in 10 years.
And she's also a future Amazing Race contestant. We get to meet Johnny Fairplay's grandma.
Wait, she's not dead?
She's not dead. And then Johnny Fairplay proceeds to spoil Survivor All-Stars. That's happening next. He mentions it, and that had not been announced. And Jeff Probst looks like he wants to murder Fairplay.
And even more importantly is that they don't preview the next season. Like, this would have been okay because I think it would have flown over people's heads enough to where it would just delay it by like 5 minutes and then like, okay, now we're going to have the preview and it's going to be revealed that we're doing this super awesome thing. But no, they just end the reunion show, and if that's the case, there's going to be probably not a lot of people who notice, but enough to where it's going to talk a little bit here, talk a little bit there, maybe someone posts a story about it, and then all of a sudden it's spoiled.
This is one of many reasons Jeff hates Johnny Fairplay.
You can just see it in his face.
Let's get into our season wrap-up. So the question is, who is the best player of the season? Now, it's got to be, for both our best player and worst player of the season, it's only the 10 people who made the merge. Those are the only people who are eligible. Of those 10, who did you guys think was the best player of the season?
Johnny Fairplay.
Yeah, it's Johnny Fairplay.
We gave him worst player of the pre-merge, but I also like to say that the pre-merge is just something to survive.
Yep.
We gave him best player of the episode more than half the time. And it wasn't close a lot of the time. It was deservedly so. He had leveraged his position as a villain in order to influence the game. And I would go so far to say as in a future season of Survivor, I don't know when the culture is really going to shift, but I know that it had already shifted by the time I was coming in at season 27. Johnny Fairplay in the final 2 has a real shot to win almost all those seasons, because at that point it's respecting the game you play to get to the end and how much power did you have and what kind of resume can you present. I don't really like the idea of Survivor resume. I always say that. But if this was a thing that was canonized in season 7 and John made it to the end, he would have a heck of a resume. He's the best. He is the best player.
I agree. John is a great Survivor player. He's got one missing piece that I think he could get. He just needs to work on his social game a little bit. And considering the fact that I don't think he cared about that because he wasn't trying to win, he was trying to be a villain, I think that's something he could pretty easily fix if he were to play again, or if we were to rewind time and have him play again. I think that's an easy fix for him. Just don't be a giant dick.
Yeah.
He's like one step shy from being an elite player. He's got that one big hole to fix, but he's fantastic strategically. Not great physically, but he can read people amazingly well. As he played a great post-merge. And just, dial down that arrogance and be a little nicer to people, and Johnny Fairplay wins the season.
You guys pulled me a little bit now, because I was leaning Sandra here. The reasoning being is that, yes, you had Fairplay be the best player for all these specific episodes, but if you're just the best player in these little spurts, that doesn't matter if the long-term game isn't feasible. If you're going to do all these different things and be able to make it to final 3 or what you should have been final 2 and have 0 chance at winning, does that matter? I don't think so. And you're kind of arguing a point of he is such a good overall player, but all the things that you're talking about are the strategic part, which is the most important part. Correct, but you're saying he needs to fill a need with his social game, and did he win any immunities?
No.
So, I mean, he's missing a couple of different things there. In the end, I'm still going to say John, but I'm very close to also saying Sandra here,
Sure.
just because of the overall end result. And I don't think that you can just say for sure, yes, it's very obviously Johnny Fairplay and that he's such an overall well-rounded player.
Oh,
yes,
he's not.
Maybe
he's not well-rounded.
Maybe it's the way that you're arguing, I guess, makes it seem like it's really close, that he just needs to tweak a little bit of his game and he's in the elite category. But I think it's actually a lot farther from that than what you're saying.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to try and prepare a well-constructed argument as to why I think that you are mistaken, Josh. When Ryan said that Johnny Fairplay was missing his social game, I don't think he's missing his social game. I think he's missing a small piece of his social game, which is likability. Because we saw time and time again him use his social ability combined with his strategic chops to sway votes in directions that they should never have gone. He played a game, whether you like it or not, that was ahead of its time. Johnny Fairplay lost so that Tony could win. And you know what? That's not his fault. I see what you're saying, where it's if you play a villainous game, that means you cannot win at the end, no matter what. Why should we give you best player? By that logic, you could never pick a best player of a given season other than the winner, which happens often enough, but I do think that this is a case where the person who was actually doing most of the playing and creating most of the influence and did it without physical chops. I mean, he's someone who knows who he is. That was the other part of my argument that I just remembered. He knows that he can't be the biggest, he can't be the strongest, he can't be the fastest, so he needs to be the smartest, and he needs to work on that likability. But otherwise, I do think that he could be the male version of Sarah Lucina, because Sarah is everything that John wishes he could be. A little bit of the bad guy,
Yep.
but everybody still would love him. Sarah played like a bad cop, and from then on turned into a legendary Survivor player. So Johnny Fairplay aspires to be Sarah Lucina, and Sarah Lucina's on my Mount Rushmore, so that is a compliment.
I don't think that you can say that by that logic, whoever's going to win is going to be the best player of the season, just because you can just get... It comes down to you just didn't really play it well at the end, and I think you can be a really good player and still not win the game. I think the flaws of being this villain is, one, the season that he's in, and that it's an older season of Survivor, but also that you're such an over-the-top villain. You can be a villain, and if he was just a regular old, just normal villain, let's say, I think I would easily give him best player of the season. But he's specifically trying to be an over-the-top villain to make a name for himself, and because of that, even if he does make it to the end, he's not going to receive enough votes. He'll probably get votes, but he won't receive enough votes to actually end up winning, depending on who he goes with. The people that play that villain role and do it really, really, really well, you still need to have people like you, and you have to have that mindset and know that you got to play with the jury. That's a very important facet of Survivor, that you need to be able to make it to the end and be able to be in a good enough place where the people who you voted out give you the money. And that is a very, very, very important part of the game that is completely gone with Johnny Fairplay.
But I think the other important thing that we haven't talked about yet is every other member of this group of 10 is also a very flawed player. Every single person here is missing something.
And that's why I'm still giving it to Johnny Fairplay, but I think it is a lot further away than you guys are saying.
Sure. So worst player of the season, I have Dara. Dara had a great physical game, probably the best of the 10, but her social game was like fine, but her strategic game was basically 0 out of 100, maybe 1 out of 100. What is she doing? She was just dumb.
I can't argue with it. It was a classic, I don't want to say like slaughter the goat, but because she didn't make it to the end, she might have been able to beat Johnny Fairplay just because so many people disliked him. She did win 3 immunities in a row, but it doesn't take someone who's good at Survivor to win a bunch of immunities in a row. And that's why we oftentimes don't see challenge beasts win. It's Dara. I agree with you.
The worst player of the season is a little bit tougher for me since I don't watch all the players or all the episodes this time around. What would be the reasoning behind her versus like a Tawana or a Krista? Because they seemed like they were just as non-existent as Dara, except Dara actually won immunities.
The two of them had better strategic chops. Tawana was at least trying to make strategic plans. She'd be my second worst. And then Krista, she at least had she was working. We saw her strategizing with Sandra, with Rupert, with Burton even, and even Fairplay at one point. Krista was trying to do stuff, just didn't break her way. Tawana was also trying to do stuff, and she was one of the key parts of trying to vote out Burton, but Sandra and Krista, for whatever reason, turned on her.
Okay.
When I think about, I'll do Tawana and Dara specifically. I think they took out T because she was more well liked and she had more social connections and more strategic chops, and that's why they kept Dara as kind of their holdover Morgan member while they started to pick each other off for Drake. I think there was a reason that they selected her. It's because they were never really worried about her getting her feet beneath her. And I know this is all kind of notwithstanding Lil discussions, because Lil was kind of a free agent. I mean, she put Drake in the power position in the post-merge by flipping initially, so I think that created some bridges for her. But I think there was a reason they got rid of T, and like Ryan said, we saw much better social chops from T.
There was just there.
Yeah, I was leaning towards her. I just kind of wanted to know the reason behind the two, because they're actually pretty close to me. So I'd also agree there.
Derek, Jeff Watch, any updates on Jeff this season?
He turned into Fan Jeff by absolutely railing against Austin for quitting, being the first quitter. He did not give him a break. Every single chance, every opportunity he had to trash Austin, he'd be like, Yeah, well, we had a chance to look at most of the torches of previous contestants. Austin quit.
Yeah, you're getting a little more sassy, Jeff, now.
Yeah.
Very sassy, Jeff.
So I'm not going to say he took any huge leaps and bounds in terms of who he is. I do think that Jeff is kind of who Jeff is.
How about for a weather report? Anything?
There was almost no rain in the post-merge. As I've already discussed, I am done counting the days of rain specifically because it doesn't really matter to me anymore. Just being completely upfront and honest. But it did not seem that the weather was playing a huge factor into the post-merge of this season at all, or really into the entire season. I'm not even really, other than the bugs that were constantly biting them, and there was the shale wall that was breaking with the shelter at the beginning. There were hermit crabs that were getting into their beds if they didn't have it raised off the ground. There were snakes all over the place, which, by the way, my wife has a crippling fear of snakes and hated watching this season because these 10-foot snakes were always slithering through the camp. It didn't seem like it was that bad from a climate standpoint or a weather standpoint this season. I would think one of the easier ones, actually.
I'd agree with that.
Because they were a fish aplenty.
Yep.
They were not hungry as long as they had someone willing to go fish.
As long as you weren't on Morgan, you weren't hungry.
Yes. And that was their fault.
Josh, you are our judge of memorability. How memorable do you think this season was, first of all?
Like ranking-wise? Or
Yeah,
it was one of the top ones.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you're going to toss, like, Borneo up there. Ones that are most memorable are, like, the first three, I'd probably say, are all right up there, just because it's so fresh and new. And then, like, Amazon was pretty memorable. But I'd probably put this as in the mix for, like, in the 2-3-ish range.
Okay.
I don't have just a complete rank down of them for most memorable. But like we said, like the cast, the characters that you got out of this, the theme was a very obvious one that you remember, and then a bunch of moments. I think I mentioned a couple, like Rupert stealing the shoes, or like him basically just being himself, like his skirt or fishing, like stuff like that, or the stuff that popped out in the pre-merge. But the easy winner is the dead grandma.
What else could it be?
There's no chance that it could be anything else.
Arguably the most memorable moment of the series.
Arguably. I don't want to say that is, because there's a lot of very memorable moments, but it would probably be in the running.
Yeah. It's one of the few things every person in America pretty much knows about.
It's right along the lines of taking your clothes off for chocolate and peanut butter.
Yeah, it's in there with Michael Scoop and falling in the fire.
Exactly.
For whatever this is worth, and I know that I'm not the tracker of memory stuff, but the stuff that's most common in Survivor with these older seasons that I hadn't seen before, I'd heard about two things from the season: dead grandma and Rupert stealing the shoes. One of them comes up for no reason, and the other one comes up when you're discussing Rupert and Rupert alone. So the one that comes up for no reason all the time with the dead grandma and maybe made a cameo in The Big Bang Theory, I would say I would agree with that so far. And it's certainly one of the most memorable moments that I've seen with my seasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe I go and once we've gone through every season or anything like that, I take the most memorable moment for each one and rank them.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. Let's do that. All right. So last thing we got to do before we wrap up is we have to do our season rankings. We have to update. We have all 7 seasons ranked at this point. I've done mine. Should I go first? Do you guys want to go first?
You go ahead.
All right. So I ended up putting Pearl Islands in first place. It's my favorite of the first 7 seasons. So my new ranking is Pearl Islands, Borneo, Amazon, Africa, Australia, Marquesas, Thailand.
Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that my order is currently 6, 2, 1, 3, 4, 5, right?
Correct.
I'm going to go ahead and slap this one right at the top.
All right.
Pearl Islands has lived up to its reputation that it had coming in for me, and it is number 1. So
Amazon's reign was short-lived.
Yes, it was. Literally the reign of the Amazon rainforest. But no, well-deserved. A lot of memorable moments, a lot of memorable characters, and I don't think I'll be forgetting this season anytime soon.
I think I'd also put it at 1. It's really close actually for me with that and Amazon. In the end, it's just such a fun season. Amazon also super fun. It just takes it up just another notch, and you just kind of hope that it keeps going throughout the series.
All right. Fire cannons.
Yeah, I would say you have season 6 and season 7. What could possibly go wrong?
Ooh, yeah, what could possibly go wrong? Speaking of what could possibly go wrong, next up we're going to be looking at Season 8 Survivor All-Stars. That is going to be, we're actually going to go watch the first episode right after this, whenever we get wrapped up here, but that'll be the next episode you hear, which will come out in 2 weeks after you're listening to this episode.
Probably.
Well, yeah, because that's what our format is. Week 1, we will do the pre-merge. Week 2 is post-merge. Week 3, no release. And then the week after that, we'll start over the cycle. So, but I think that is everything. Anything else you guys want to add?
Nope, I'm good.
Good.
All right, you can follow us on Twitter at Castaway Pod. Rate and review. We love 5-star reviews. Those are our favorite. And if you give us some of those, we'll read them on the podcast. But in the meantime, this has been the Castaway Consultants.
Got nothing else for you.
Good night.